Chapter 469. After passing through heaven's canopy, the sky was bright. Chu Luiwei raised her hand to cover her eyes. After getting used to the light, she looked up ahead. Above the blue sky, bluish-purple clouds piled up and flowed with the wind. The black land was vast and boundless. At a glance, it was boundless. Where the sky and the earth met, there was a line of white. Behind the clouds, a bright orange-yellow color appeared, plating the clouds with a layer of warm light. On the ground, several teleportation portals were arranged in rows and slowly rotating. An indescribable pressure spread out. Chu Luiwei held her breath slightly. All of this scene was so familiar. But when she came again, she was in a different state of mind. Even her identity was completely different. This is the northern border of the Tianling dynasty. There are a total of 108 teleportation portals, all of which lead to different places in the Tianling dynasty. Jian Fengxi walked over from behind and stood beside Chu Luiwei. He pointed at the largest teleportation portal in front of them and smiled. The largest one goes to the Imperial capital of the Tianling dynasty, Xiling. It can teleport thousands of people at once. Building a teleportation portal usually required the cooperation of mystic cultivators and martial artists, and it consumed a lot of energy. Ordinary teleportation portals could only teleport about 10 people. Portals of this scale were extremely rare. Even in the entire Tianling dynasty, there were only 5 portals. Each one consumed an unimaginable amount of manpower and resources. Chu Luiwei exhaled softly. She came from the capital to inspect heaven's canopy through this teleportation portal. Of course, she was very familiar with it. How is it? Is it like what you imagined? Jian Fengxi asked teasingly. In Jian Fengxi's opinion, with Chu Luiwei's background, she must be full of yearning and fantasizing about the Tianling dynasty. Not to mention people outside heaven's canopy. Even those who had seen many things in heaven's canopy were often shocked by this scene when they came here for the first time. Chu Luiwei's lips curved up, and she nodded. The Tianling dynasty is indeed worthy of its reputation. Jian Fengxi raised his eyebrows. That's nothing. When you get to the West Hill, you'll know how much fun there is in this world. Chu Luiwei gave him a meaningful look. She had no interest in the fun that he was talking about. Jian Fengxi inexplicably felt guilty and coughed while holding his fist. Cough, it's getting late. Let's hit the road first. As he spoke, he walked towards the teleportation array. However, right at this moment, a gust of cold wind suddenly assaulted them from behind. 2 figures quickly flashed past. He rushed right in front of them. With a leap, he landed on the teleportation array. Chu Luiwei narrowed his eyes. They were the 2 people who had been following them. Chen Xiyuan ignored Chu Luiwei and Zhao Yunji and said loudly to Zhao Yunji, "Yunji, don't worry. Using this teleportation array, we can reach Xiling very quickly. We will definitely make it in time." Zhao Yunji's beautiful eyes widened, and she couldn't hide the shock on her face. I didn't expect there to be such a large teleportation array in this world. Not only is this teleportation array big, it's also very safe. There are hundreds of Xian arrays set up inside, enough to block all the spatial turbulence outside. It's no different from walking outside, Chen Xiyuan said lightly, but there was a hint of pride on his face. The first sect master of the Lingyun sect personally participated in the construction of this teleportation array. Zhao Yunji's eyes lit up when she heard that. She said with admiration, "The Lingyun sect is indeed amazing. Cousin, you were able to enter and be accepted as the sect master's disciple. You are truly a dragon among men." Chen Xiyuan felt refreshed, and there was unconcealable pride in his eyes. "When we reach Xiling, I will personally bring you to the Lingyun sect to take a look." "Thank you, cousin." Chen Xiyuan was about to activate the teleportation array and leave. The smile on Jian Fengxi's face had already disappeared, and there was a hint of coldness in his icy eyes. "Wait." His voice seemed to be filled with ice shards, making people unconsciously feel a chill in their hearts. Although his tone was languid, there was a sense of superiority and majesty. Chen Xiyuan paused for a moment before looking over. He sized up Jian Fengxi and frowned slightly. He had never seen this person before, but this man's aura seemed to indicate that he was not an ordinary person. Who gave you the guts to snatch it from me? Chen Shiyuan sneered. This isn't snatching. This teleportation array is meant to be used by whoever arrives first. We arrived before you, so naturally, we will use it first. Jian Fengqi dug his ears. What did you say? Is this person crazy? Chen Shiyuan snorted and said, Oh, right. We don't like to share the teleportation array with others either. So, you should wait for the next one. Yunji, let's go. Before the two of them could move, they heard a mocking voice coming from behind them. So, the people of the Lingyun sect are all so shameless? Jian Fengqi's words successfully made Chen Shiyuan's blood boil. He suddenly turned around and said angrily, What did you say? Jian Fengqi smiled and said, Why? Your ears are not working well again. How dare you? How dare you insult my sect? I think you're tired of living. What happened before was actually nothing. He did not intend to continue entangling with these two people, but they spoke arrogantly and insulted the Lingyun sect. He could not tolerate it. Chu Liwei thought to himself, This is nothing. Jian Fengqi once scolded the 9 elders of the Lingyun sect to their faces. He did not even bother to scold those of low levels. Chen Shiyuan did not recognize Jian Fengqi, which could only mean that his level was too low. Seriously speaking, Jian Fengqi and Chen Shiyuan's tit-for-tat confrontation could be considered to be flattering. But Chen Shiyuan obviously did not think so. He took a step forward, and the force around him surged. What sect are you from? Tell me your name. Jian Fengqi touched his chin. You're not qualified to know my name. Chen Shiyuan choked. He never expected this person to be so arrogant. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, It seems that you didn't hear clearly before. I'll tell you again. I'm the disciple of the Lingyun sect's sect master, Chen Shiyuan. If you insist on opposing me, don't blame me for being rude. Oh. Jian Fengqi acted as if he suddenly realized something. He raised his chin and said to Chu Liwei, Did you hear that? There were a total of 197 disciples under the Lingyun sect's sect master, and he was one of them. This identity was very powerful. Although he said that, anyone could hear the sarcasm in his words. Chen Shiyuan's face was gloomy as he sneered. It seems that you don't care about my identity. I wonder what noble identity you have. Why don't you tell me and let me know which big shot you have offended? As he said that, his gaze fell on Chu Liwei and he sneered disdainfully. It just so happens that I also want to know who is so useless that they can only find a rank 3 warrior to come here. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly. Was he looking down on her? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 470. Jian Fengqi's expression suddenly became thought-provoking. TSK. If this guy knew that Chu Liwei was brought here by Mu Qinghe, his expression would be very interesting. He looked at Chu Liwei with a smile. Looks like he doesn't like you. Chu Liwei glanced at him. He probably wouldn't be able to change his personality of wanting to see the world in chaos. Chu Liwei looked at Chen Shiyuan and smiled faintly. Since I can come, I naturally have the qualifications. Young master, Chen doesn't need to worry about this. Chen Shiyuan suddenly froze, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Previously, his attention was all on the man, so he didn't notice that the girl in red beside him was actually extremely beautiful. Zhao Yunji also froze when she saw Chu Liu's appearance. She boasted that she was also a heavenly beauty, and countless young talents had fallen for her. However, compared to this girl, she instantly paled in comparison. She almost instinctively looked at Chen Shiyuan, and, as expected, she saw that his expression was a bit strange. His eyes fell on the girl for a long time without looking away. Her heart suddenly seemed to be blocked by something, and her expression became ugly. Cousin, it's better to avoid trouble. How about we just let it go? Let it go first. It won't take long anyway. She pulled Chen Shiyuan's sleeve and bit her lip. There was a hint of grievance in her eyes, and she looked very pitiful. Only then did Chen Shiyuan come back to his senses. Seeing her like this, his heart instantly ached. He liked Zhao Yunji for many years, and now that he finally made a name for himself in the Tianling dynasty, he brought her over. But just after crossing heaven's canopy, he made her feel wronged. If he really let it go, what kind of man would he be? He patted her hand and said, "Don't worry. I won't let anyone bully you." After saying that, he suppressed his thoughts and looked at the two people in front of him again. He originally wanted to make fun of them, but he didn't expect that these two people didn't seem to care at all. Forget about the tall man. He should have some strength. But that woman, I didn't know that a mere rank 3 warrior could be so arrogant. Chen Shiyuan mocked. Chu Luiyue sighed inwardly. Her cultivation level in the Tianling dynasty was indeed quite eye-catching. I'm just telling the truth. Her expression was calm as she spoke, neither servile nor overbearing. Chen Shiyuan already had a stomach full of anger. Since he decided to help Zhao Yunji vent her anger, his tone naturally wouldn't be good. "Oh, since you said so, why don't you tell me your name? When we get to the West Hill, we'll see if you're as powerful as you say you are." Chu Yueyue's eyes flickered. Country Yao Chun, Chu Luiyue. She usually didn't find trouble with others, but if trouble came knocking on her door, she wouldn't be afraid. Country Yao Chun. "Cousin, I don't think I've heard this name before," Zhao Yunji said unintentionally as she looked at the woman's alluring face with jealousy. Chen Shiyuan snorted. "It's just a small country that can't even reach the apex. Someone who was sent to such a place wouldn't have a high status." He had been worrying too much. Thinking of this, he became even more unscrupulous. "I'll give you a chance. As long as you're willing to kowtow and apologize, I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise," Jian Fengqi laughed as if he had heard a joke. "Ha ha ha. What did you say? You want me to kowtow and apologize?" Chen Shiyuan, who was interrupted, felt offended again. The laughter was even more ear-piercing. "Why? You're not willing?" Chu Luiyue finally couldn't help but click her tongue. It had only been a year since he returned. How did the disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect become so arrogant and brainless? Even the sect master of the Soaring Cloud sect didn't dare to say such things to Jian Fengqi. A mere disciple of the sect master actually dared to climb over his head. The ignorant were truly fearless. Jian Fengqi laughed. "What a coincidence. I was just about to say that too. But looking at you, it seems like you won't do it." Chen Shiyuan only felt that the man in front of him was really unreasonable. Who did he think he was? How dare he speak to him like that? It seems like this negotiation doesn't need to continue. The strong are respected. Let's see who's the real deal. After saying that, Chen Shiyuan leaped and flew toward Jian Fengqi. Lower stage, 7th stage. He looked like he was in his 20s. It was indeed not bad to be able to reach this stage. But in the eyes of Chu Luiyue and Jian Fengqi, it was just SOSO. Chen Shiyuan crossed his hands in front of him, and a yellowish-brown force quickly gathered. Very soon, an enormous origin sphere appeared in front of him. Great Earth Force! With this roar, he raised his hands high above his head and threw the ball out fiercely. The ball flew quickly toward Jian Fengqi. A heavy pressure came head-on. The surrounding space seemed to have become much heavier. Chu Yueyue's shoulders seemed to be pressed down by a small mountain. The pressure of a 7th-stage warrior was still somewhat unbearable for her. Jian Fengqi waved his sleeves lightly. That heavy pressure instantly dissipated. As for the ball, it stopped 3 steps away from him. Chen Shiyuan's expression changed. This man's realm was above his. Jian Fengqi raised his arm and opened his palm. Then, he clenched his fist lightly. "Go!" That ball immediately flew in the opposite direction toward Chen Shiyuan. Its speed was even faster than when it went. Chen Shiyuan knew something was wrong and immediately retreated. But that ball was faster than him, and the distance between them quickly shrank. It was as if there was an invisible hand pushing it forward, and the pressure on it was much stronger than before. Chen Shiyuan felt a tightness in his chest, and even his movements became slower. He felt more and more uneasy and immediately pulled out the scimitar at his waist. He slashed horizontally. Chi bang! That ball suddenly exploded. A violent force spread in all directions. Chen Shiyuan was very close and was unavoidably affected. His chest shook, and his body flew out uncontrollably, finally landing heavily on the ground. Puff! He clutched his chest with difficulty and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Cousin!" Zhao Yunji exclaimed and hurriedly ran over, worriedly helping him up. "Cousin, how are you?" Chun Shiyuan's mouth was still stained with blood, and his face was much paler than before. The other party's attack actually broke his ribs. Most importantly, he seemed to be injured internally. Zhao Yunji looked at him in this state and felt heartache and anger. She couldn't help but turn around and say angrily, "You guys are too much. Soaring Cloud Sect will definitely not let you off for hurting my cousin." She gritted her teeth and looked at Chu Luiyue. "Chu Luiyue, right? Don't be too proud. Wait and see when we reach Xiling." Chu Luiyue smiled. "I'll be waiting for you." A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 471. From the start to the end, Chu Luiyue felt that she had been very polite. She didn't even say a word that offended him. However, they had obviously included her in their calculations and were planning to take revenge in the future. There was no point in explaining further. Moreover, she couldn't be bothered to say anything to them. The other party threatened to deal with her, so she calmly faced them and followed. However, in Zhao Yunji's eyes, this reaction made Chu Luiyue even more arrogant. Wasn't she just relying on the fact that that man was stronger? However, when they reached the West Hill, this man would definitely not be able to protect her all the time. When the time came, she would definitely take revenge for all the humiliation and grievances she had suffered today. Jian Fengqi stepped onto the teleportation array. When he walked past Qin Shiyuan and Zhao Yunji, his footsteps paused. Qin Shiyuan subconsciously shrank back. Jian Fengqi glanced at him and chuckled. The people of the Lingyun sect are really getting worse with each generation. Qin Shiyuan's face flushed red. He was about to say something, but when he thought of the terrifying aura on this man's body, he swallowed it back. Chu Luiyue followed. Jian Fengqi activated the teleportation array. The two figures quickly disappeared. After confirming that the two had left, Qin Shiyuan struggled to stand up with Zhao Yunji's help. "Cousin, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been in a hurry, these things wouldn't have happened, and they wouldn't have been so heavy-handed to you." Zhao Yunji was about to cry. Qin Shiyuan swallowed the blood in his mouth and stared at the teleportation array. "It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. When I find out that person's identity, I'll definitely teach them a lesson. My Lingyun sect is not so easy to bully." Jian Fengqi and Chu Luiyue didn't care about this small matter. After the two entered the teleportation array, the journey was smooth. Because this teleportation array's level was extremely high, the speed was actually very fast. Even though the northern border and the West Hill were extremely far away, it didn't take too long. However, for Chu Luiyue, every minute and every second near the West Hill was extremely long. Fortunately, because of the darkness, Jian Fengqi could not see her expression. "When we reach the West Hill, I'll send you to Mu Qinghe first," Jian Fengqi said slowly. Chu Luiyue suddenly came to his senses, and only then did he utter a sound of acknowledgement. After pausing for a moment, she finally couldn't help but ask, "It seems that many Daijing Yuan Meridian cultivators from outside Heaven's Canopy have come this time." This was a little strange. The Tianling dynasty didn't lack such geniuses. Spending so much manpower and resources to search for them outside Heaven's Canopy was truly puzzling. Jian Fengqi chuckled lightly, as if he was in disdain. "They're always up to something messy. Who knows what they're up to this time?" Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she probingly asked in a low voice, "Them?" He thought that Jian Fengqi wouldn't answer, but he was surprisingly honest this time. "It's the Tianling dynasty's third princess and her husband, Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing. It's really them." Chu Luiyue was extremely glad that they were in the space tunnel, and Jian Fengqi couldn't see her expression. Hearing that Chu Luiyue was silent, Jian Fengqi explained again. "Oh, the third princess's current status is equivalent to the ruler of the entire Tianling dynasty. When you reach the West Hill, you'll naturally know." He didn't say it earlier because he wasn't very familiar with Chu Luiyue, and she was still in country Yaochun at that time. However, now that she was about to reach the West Hill, even if he didn't say it, she could find out from others. In addition, the two of them had spent some time together, and he somewhat admired Chu Luiyue, so he was willing to take the initiative to say a few words. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. She restrained her emotions and asked with slight surprise, "What do you mean? Don't tell me the Tianling dynasty doesn't have one?" His Majesty is seriously ill and bedridden, so he left most of the matters to the third princess to manage. Jian Fengqi said lightly, with a hint of contempt and disdain in his tone. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Father is actually still alive. She thought that after she died of rape, Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing would definitely not let her father off. She didn't expect that after so long, they still hadn't completely taken action. She hesitated for a moment, lowered her voice, and asked, "Young Master Jian, you seem to have feelings for the third princess. Contempt? Disdain? Disgust?" Chu Luiyue didn't finish her sentence. Jian Fengqi suddenly laughed. "Have you ever told me that your cleverness can be very annoying sometimes? Especially when it's like..." Jian Fengqi's words came to an abrupt end. Chu Luiyue coughed. "It's all in the past, so let's not talk about it. However, you guessed right. He really does hate Shang Wanwan." Chu Luiyue blinked, somewhat curious. As far as she knew, Jian Fengqi had a good impression of Shang Wanwan back then, and even helped Shanghai Wan find trouble with her. Of course, at that time, she didn't realize that Shang Wanwan did it on purpose. She only thought that Jian Fengqi had lost his mind and had a big quarrel with him. She didn't expect that his attitude toward Shang Wanwan had changed so much. Chu Luiyue was about to ask a few more questions to find out the purpose of Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing's actions, when she suddenly saw a light in front of her. She suddenly clenched her fists. "We're here. Let's go." Jian Fengqi took the lead and walked out. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and followed closely behind. Heaven and earth spun, the darkness receded, and bright sunlight poured down. However, this time, Chu Luiyue didn't cover her eyes with her hands. She opened her eyes and stared straight ahead. The majestic Xiling city was like a ferocious beast entrenched in its territory. It stood between heaven and earth. It was majestic and solemn. The sunlight was so glaring that it stung her eyes, and tears almost flowed out. Xiling, she had finally returned. Digression. There's still one more update later. Everyone, go to bed early. It's the same in the morning. Chapter 472. This was the Pingliang Plaza outside Xiling City. The entire plaza was built with rare and expensive lapis lazuli and occupied a large area. There were also several transportation formations in the plaza. The one that Chu Luiyue and the others used was in the center. When the two of them walked out of the space tunnel, the bustling plaza instantly quieted down. Countless pairs of eyes looked over. Every day, many people came from all over the place, and many people left the Western Mausoleum. Therefore, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. But the transportation formation in the center led to Heaven's Canopy at the northern border, so there was usually no one there. Now that two people suddenly appeared, it naturally attracted many people's attention. When they saw the appearance of the two people, the plaza became even quieter. The man was tall and wore a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist that easily outlined his smooth outline. Moreover, his eyes were actually blue. At a glance, they were like the purest and most transparent ice spirits. But there was a hint of spring in the corners of his eyes, which made the originally cold eyes ripple a little more. His gaze swept over, and many girls blushed. Such outstanding charm was really rare. But the girl standing beside him was not inferior and was even more dazzling. Her figure was exquisite and slender, and she wore a red robe. Her black hair was simply tied up, and there were no extra accessories on her body. But her skin was white as snow, her eyebrows were like distant mountains, her nose was delicate, and her lips were red without any makeup. Especially her eyes, which were pure and moving like black jade. When the sunlight fell into her eyes, it was like a brilliant river of stars in the starry night. and there was a faint noble aura between her eyebrows, which added a touch of unattainable charm to her, making people unconsciously revere and submit to her. Such a girl was extremely beautiful and also extremely noble. Although many men were blushing and their hearts were beating fast, they did not dare to go forward. They came from that transportation formation. Could it be that they came from outside heaven's canopy? Suddenly, a low, questioning voice came from the crowd. This sentence finally broke the silence. Everyone looked at each other. Should be right. Isn't that the transportation formation that leads to the northern border? Recently, many people came one after another. That man looks familiar. His blue eyes are filled with love. Isn't that young Master Jian? Which young Master Jian? It's the one for Dragon Teeth Mountain. Have you forgotten? Many people sucked in a cold breath. Jian Fengqi. His whereabouts had always been a mystery. In addition to his noble status, not many people had seen him before. However, in Shilling City, he was very famous. Although he couldn't be sure, this man looked very similar to the rumors. It was most likely him. If that's really Jian Fengqi, then the woman next to him is she was only a rank 3 warrior? She looks like she's only 15 or 16 years old. How could she only be a rank 3 warrior? The crowd fell silent. Their gazes, which were originally filled with amazement and curiosity, suddenly became somewhat subtle. Then they must be from outside heaven's canopy. Someone said with certainty. How could a cultivator of this level enter this place? Those who came before were at least peak rank 4. She's pretty, but she's not that strong. She dared to come to Shilling with such strength. She must have some backing, right? I think that face of hers might be her biggest backer. A few girls spoke softly, laughing together. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows and laughed softly. They're praising your beauty. Chu Luiyue glanced at him lazily. This person's focus was always different from others. Why are you looking at me? I'm handsome and handsome. I won't be jealous of your looks. The smile on Jian Fengqi's lips deepened, and he looked like he was waiting to watch a good show. However, Chu Luiyue's expression was calm, as if she didn't take this matter to heart at all. In fact, she had already expected this. He came from outside heaven's canopy and was only a rank 3 warrior. Just these 2 factors alone were enough to bring her a lot of trouble. Moreover, fundamentally speaking, she was fighting alone and had no background or backing. This was even more unthinkable. Shilling City, as the imperial capital of the Tianling dynasty, had the most honorable status and the most abundant resources. The most powerful cultivators. Here, strength reigned supreme. No weakling could survive here. Those who could stay in Shilling City were all ruthless characters. So before she came, she had already mentally prepared herself. Now, this was not a big deal. She looked at the group of women who were laughing together. Her expression didn't change, but her clear eyes seemed to contain some kind of pressure that made people uneasy. The women's laughter gradually subsided. For some reason, they felt guilty and avoided Chu Luiyue's gaze. Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze in satisfaction and walked forward. Hold on. A middle-aged man suddenly walked forward and blocked Chu Luiyue's path. He was tall and muscular, his face dark, and the muscles on his body almost burst his clothes. Chu Luiyue looked up and looked at the man. What's the matter? The middle-aged man sized her up, and his voice was like a bell. People from outside have to pay to use our Tianling dynasty's teleportation array. The one you're using is the biggest, so it'll be counted as 10 white crystal coins. In Heaven's Canopy, silver and gold were no longer considered hard currencies. Instead, they were replaced by the more precious white crystal coins. 1 white crystal coin was equivalent to 10,000 taels of gold outside Heaven's Canopy. 10 white crystal coins were equivalent to 10,000 taels of gold. This was clearly an exorbitant demand. Chu Luiyue's eyes narrowed dangerously, and she smiled. Just in time. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 473. It's not impossible for me to pay, but I need to know your identity first, right? Chu Luiyue said calmly. Seeing Chu Luiyue's attitude, the man thought that she was afraid and became even more arrogant. I am Wu Zhao, a disciple of Eight Paths sect. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Eight Paths sect was just a third-rate sect in Xiling. She didn't expect that one of their people would dare to show off in front of her in Pingliang Square. I'm not asking for your name. I'm asking, why are you taking my money? You don't sound like you're from the government, right? Wu Zhao was stunned for a moment before he understood Chu Luiyue's meaning. He clenched his fists and took a step forward. Chu Luiyue looked even more petite and dainty compared to his tall and sturdy figure. Why? Of course it's because my fists are hard. If you don't pay today, don't even think about leaving. It was obvious that they were trying to rob him. The many teleportation arrays in Pingliang Square all belonged to the royal family of the Tianling dynasty. Under normal circumstances, as long as there were no special circumstances, these teleportation arrays could be used by cultivators. However, maintaining these teleportation arrays would consume a huge amount of money, so they would charge a symbolic maintenance fee. However, even the largest teleportation array she was using now only charged 1 white crystal coin for 10 people. This Wu Zhao asked for 10 white crystals. It was simply an exorbitant price. The most important thing was that although the Black Cavalry was responsible for maintaining the teleportation arrays, they were only responsible for maintaining law and order. The collection of fees was mostly left to the sects in Xiling City. These sects would give people preferential treatment when using the teleportation arrays, and they could even make a profit from it, so it was naturally harmonious. Therefore, although there were many Black Cavalry patrolling around, when they saw Wu Zhao looking for trouble with Chu Luiyue, no one stepped forward. Under normal circumstances, as long as no lives were involved, they wouldn't pay too much attention. Jian Fengqi crossed his arms and watched from his sidelines with a smile. This Wu Zhao was only at the early stage of the 5th stage, so if he took action, it wouldn't be a problem. However, it seemed that Chu Luiyue didn't intend to let him intervene. He also wanted to see how Chu Luiyue would deal with these troubles after coming to Xiling City. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Jian Fengqi could help her once, but he couldn't help her a second time, third time, or countless times. Besides, she knew the rules of Xiling. If she couldn't solve this problem, then she would always be to the others. What if I say no? Chu Luiyue asked slowly. Wu Zhao laughed coldly. Little girl, it seems like this is your first time in West Hill. There are some rules that you don't know yet. To be honest, to pay the money to pay. Otherwise, it would be a pity if such a beautiful face was ruined. I said no, said Chu Luiyue resolutely. Was to Chu to be, A to B. It's fine if you don't want to, as long as you can defeat me. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Luiyue condescendingly again. His aura burst out and almost enveloped Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue smiled and nodded. Okay. As soon as she finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Wu Zhao frowned. What did you say? Chu Luiyue pointed at herself. I said, okay. Not to mention that she didn't have any white crystal coins on her. Even if she did, she wouldn't waste them on such a place. Wu Zhao was so angry that he laughed. Good. You're the one who said it. Don't regret it later. Chu Luiyue looked around and raised her chin at an empty space next to her. Over there. As he spoke, he walked over without saying a word. Everyone looked at each other. She's not crazy, is she? She really wants to challenge Wu Zhao. Although Wu Zhao can only be regarded as a middle to lower level in Eight Paths sect, he is still at the early stage of the 5th stage. That woman is only a 3rd stage warrior. Isn't she courting death? Who knows what she's thinking? Anyway, she came here with Jian Fengqi. She probably thinks that Wu Zhao won't dare to kill her. Pingliang Square has always had a rule. As long as it's a one-on-one battle, no one else can interfere. Although Jian Fengqi is noble and powerful, he definitely knows that if he intervenes halfway, that woman won't be able to raise her head in the entire Xiling City. I just hope that Wu Zhao doesn't hurt that woman's face. It's been a long time since such a beautiful woman appeared in Xiling City. Chu Luiwei didn't care about the discussions around her. She walked to the empty space and stood there, looking at Wu Zhao opposite her. Chu Luiwei from country Yaochun is here to challenge you. Wu Zhao stretched his shoulders and stared at Chu Luiwei. Wu Zhao from 8 Paths Sect accepts the challenge. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved and took the lead to rush towards Chu Luiwei. Although he was burly, his movements were extremely nimble and his speed was extremely fast. He was like a moving hill. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Chu Luiwei. It was a simple straight punch, and it struck out fiercely. In his opinion, such a delicate third-stage warrior was not worthy of him using his martial arts skills. One punch was enough. Chu Luiwei's hair fluttered in the wind. The tyrannical wind from the punch caused her clothes to flutter. The pressure came straight at her face. Seeing that the fist that was almost the size of Chu Luiwei's face was about to land, many people shook their heads regretfully. Was this woman scared out of her wits? She didn't even know how to dodge. From the looks of it, he seemed to have some confidence, but it turned out that it was just a pretense. At this moment, Chu Luiwei took a wrong step. Her waist went soft, and she bent backward. She narrowly avoided the punch. Then, she raised her right hand and grabbed Wu Zhao's wrist. Wu Zhao was shocked. How had the woman managed to dodge it? Before he could figure out, he suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his wrist. Chu Luiwei had closed her fingers and locked them inwards. Then, he viciously twisted his wrist upwards. Almost at the same time, she lifted her leg and kicked Wu Zhao's elbow. Extreme numbness and pain came, causing the strength in Wu Zhao's arm to dissipate instantly. His arm went soft for a moment. He was extremely shocked and furious. His other hand immediately stretched out and grabbed Chu Luiwei. However, Chu Luiwei used her leg to lock Wu Zhao's arm, and then turned her waist. Her entire body flipped in the air. Wu Zhao's arm was trapped and was almost broken. Then, Chu Luiwei landed lightly, but Wu Zhao was implicated and fell directly to the ground. Bang! His heavy body landed on the ground with a dull thud. Wu Zhao clenched his teeth and was about to get up to counterattack, but Chu Luiwei had already taken advantage of him and stomped on Wu Zhao's chest. That slender and straight long leg looked extremely beautiful, but it contained an astonishing amount of power. With one stomp, Kacha, Wu Zhao's chest actually caved in deeply. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 474. Was this lady's leg made of iron? This thought flashed across Wu Zhao's mind. His face instantly turned pale. When the crowd saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. That Chu Luiwei had actually broken Wu Zhao's bones with one stomp. From the way he was injured, he had at least 3 broken ribs. Since when did a third-level warrior's physical strength become so strong? One must know that a 5th-level warrior at this age was basically not qualified to collect money in Pingliang Square. The reason why Wu Zhao was an exception was because he was born with divine strength. That body of muscles was not just for show. But just now, he had been easily knocked down by a slender woman. Chu Luiwei looked down at Wu Zhao with a smile on her face. "You're weaker than I thought." Wu Zhao was furious and raised both his hands to grab Chu Luiwei's ankles. Chu Luiwei stomped hard again. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking was even clearer. An intense pain came from his chest, causing Wu Zhao to break out in cold sweat. He wanted to get up, but his body felt as heavy as a mountain. He was unable to move at all. Before this, he had never thought that he would actually suffer such a huge loss at the hands of such a delicate-looking woman. If it was just a simple physical fight, he would most likely not win. Wu Zhao's mind turned, and he immediately decided to use his martial arts. Sensing the force in his body, Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. If she did not use the power of the water droplet in her dantian, the force in her body would not be able to compete with a 5th-level warrior like Wu Zhao. So, she definitely could not give him this chance. Chi! A force flew out from Wu Zhao's palm. Chu Luiwei moved sideways to avoid it. At the same time, she took a step back. Wu Zhao was delighted. He pushed his palm against the ground and flipped himself up, but when he stood up, he realized that Chu Luiwei was no longer in front of him. His heart was suddenly filled with shock. A cold wind came from the back of his head. He did not even think before he pounced forward and rolled on the ground. Tut! A flying dagger as thin as a cicada's wing directly pierced into the position where he had just been standing. 1/3 of the blade had sunk in. Wu Zhao turned around and saw that the flying dagger was still trembling slightly. His eyelids twitched fiercely. The plaza was made of lapis lazuli and was extremely hard. Normal yuan tools would not be able to leave any marks on it. However, this Chu Luiwei had only thrown a flying knife, and it was easily split open. This was something he knew he couldn't do. It wasn't hard to imagine what would have happened if he had dodged his steps slower. Wu Zhao felt a chill run down his spine as he felt some regret in his heart. A person who could take out a throwing knife of this level definitely had a big background. However, if he were to admit defeat now, he would definitely become the laughingstock of the entire Shieling city. Thinking of this, he suddenly pulled out the saber at his waist. An inch longer, an inch stronger. He didn't believe that he couldn't defeat a rank 3 warrior. Just as he began to crazily inject his origin power into the saber, another flying saber flew out from Chu Yueyue's hand. The situation was urgent, and Wu Zhao didn't have time to use any martial arts techniques. He was forced to stop and raise his saber to meet the attack. Swish! That flying knife was only the size of a finger, and it scraped across Wu Zhao's saber. A series of sparks flew. Following this ear-piercing sound, he was shocked to see that a neat crack had appeared on his saber. Immediately, crack! The saber split into 2 halves. Even the origin power in his body suffered a backlash and became chaotic. At this moment, Chu Luiwei took a big stride forward. He actually charged directly towards Wu Zhao. Then he lifted his long leg and kicked toward his heart. Wu Zhao's heart trembled. He threw away the saber handle, clenched his fists tightly, and crossed them in front of his body to block. Chu Yueyue's leg accurately kicked his wrist that was injured just now. Crack! His wrist suddenly showed a strange posture. Wu Zhao groaned and took half a step back. His eyes were burning with rage. Despicable! However, Chu Luiwei used the rebounding force to jump up. Wu Zhao was furious. Ignoring his injury, he used his other hand to grab Chu Yueyue's calf. Then, he fell heavily to the ground. Bang! Chu Yueyue's back hit the ground hard. Her body shook, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Wu Zhao's eyes were red. He suddenly dragged Chu Luiwei backwards. Chu Yueyue's body left a trail of blood on the ground. Just as she was thinking of how to escape, Wu Zhao suddenly stopped. Then, he threw Chu Luiwei up again and threw her down heavily. On the ground, a cold light flashed. It was the flying knife that Chu Luiwei had thrown out earlier. Once it reached his back, it would definitely pierce through his heart. Go to hell! Wu Zhao shouted angrily. However, at this moment, a red shadow flashed past. Wu Zhao suddenly felt a sharp pain on his arm. His hand unconsciously loosened. He turned his head to look. It was a 3rd-grade blood ferret that had bitten off a layer of flesh from his forearm. Blood dripped. Chu Luiwei took the opportunity to escape. She rolled on the ground and avoided Wu Zhao's attack. The next moment, she waved her wrist, and a cold light flew out from her hand. Wu Zhao saw clearly that it was a dagger this time. He quickly dodged. However, just as the dagger was about to graze past his ear, a flying dagger suddenly flew out from the tip of the dagger. Wu Zhao's pupil shrank. He wanted to avoid it immediately. However, he was still a step too late. That flying knife directly pierced through his shoulder. When Chu Luiwei got up from the ground, she had already pulled out the flying knife. She had also retrieved the dagger. Wu Zhao covered his shoulder, but blood still flowed out. Chu Luiwei rushed forward again. Wu Zhao felt extremely sullen. He wanted to use martial techniques, but Chu Yueyue's attacks were fast and hurried, leaving him no time to gather his strength. Every time he prepared to attack, Chu Luiwei would make the first move. It was as if she did not care about her life and did not hold back at all. It was as if she was not worried about the consequences if she missed. He lifted his eyes to look at Chu Luiwei. Those black, jade-like eyes were burning with a crazy fighting spirit. It was as if she would not stop until she died. The injuries on her body were not much better than his. Her entire body was stained with blood, but her fighting spirit seemed to be getting stronger. Wu Zhao's heart skipped a beat, and he felt an inexplicable sense of fear. Although he had cultivated for many years and had a lot of fighting experience, he did not have the will to fight to the death. This Chu Luiwei was as if she did not care about her life. In a battle, strength was very important, but at the same time, willpower was not to be underestimated. Once the spirit was discouraged, it would be defeated. This was the case for Wu Zhao now. Facing Chu Luiwei's continuous approach, he subconsciously took a step back. Suddenly, a strange sound came from behind him. He suddenly turned around. He saw that the blood ferret had a dagger in its mouth. It shook its tail and threw the dagger out. Chu Luiwei rushed forward and grabbed the dagger. Wu Zhao had just reacted when he suddenly felt a cold, tingling sensation coming from the back of his neck. Do you want to admit defeat, or do you want to continue? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience came from love. Chapter 475. Admit defeat? Wu Zhao couldn't say that no matter what. Continue? The sharp dagger on his neck was about to pierce his neck. He didn't doubt that as long as Chu Luiwei wanted to, he could cut him in half right now. Countless pairs of eyes looked over, making him extremely embarrassed. He couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Chu Luiwei flicked the dagger lightly, making a crisp sound. Wu Zhao's body almost trembled. You win. He closed his eyes and said as if he had accepted his fate. After he said that, the surroundings were dead silent. Wu Zhao actually admitted defeat. He, a beginner stage 5 warrior, actually lost to a stage 3 warrior. If this news were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in Xiling City. Am I too ignorant and inexperienced? When did the stage 3 warriors outside Heaven's Canopy become so strong? Someone in the crowd muttered softly. Or is Wu Zhao's stage 5 warrior strength just fake? Wu Zhao's face turned red and white. His veins were bulging, and he wanted to curse out loud. His strength was fake. If they have the ability, then come and try. This Chu Luiwei. Damn it, she's not a normal person at all. It wasn't like he hadn't fought with stage 3 warriors before. Who was like her? Other things aside, just her physical strength and speed were not inferior to his at all. Where did such a freak come from? Admit defeat? Chu Luiwei curled her lips in satisfaction. Okay, then take 10 white crystal coins. Wu Zhao was stunned. What did you say? Chu Luiwei explained with a smile. I said, since you chose to admit defeat, then give me 10 white crystal coins, and we'll forget about this matter. Wu Zhao didn't react for a while. Why? Why should I give you so much money? I already said that you won. What else do you want? They didn't bet 10 white crystal coins. Whoever loses gets to take it. Chu Luiwei blinked. Oh, so you don't want to give it to me? In your dreams. Wu Zhao shouted furiously. He had been in Xiling City for so many years, but he had never seen anyone who not only refused to pay, but also asked for money. Chu Luiwei, right? I'm warning you. This isn't your lousy, third-rate country. You can do whatever you want here. It's best if you stop while you're ahead. Otherwise, Chu Luiwei impatiently pushed the dagger forward. The sharp tip of the dagger instantly pierced his flesh. Warm and sweet blood slowly flowed out from the dagger. Wu Zhao's voice stopped abruptly. Admit defeat and take 10 white crystal coins. Let's continue then. Chu Luiwei kindly explained. I'll ask you again, which one do you choose? Wu Zhao was so angry that smoke was almost coming out his head. You, how dare you? It seems that you think your life is not worth 10 white crystal coins? Chu Luiwei shook his head regretfully. What a pity. As he spoke, he flicked his wrist and was about to make a move. I'll give. Wu Zhao finally couldn't hold back and shouted. He had a premonition in his heart. This Chu Luiwei really dared to kill him. He stiffened his body, took out 10 white crystal coins from his Chinquan bag, and handed them to Chu Luiwei. Take it. Chu Luiwei gave Dumpling a look. Dumpling immediately went forward, hugged the ball of white crystal coins, and flew towards Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei glanced at it from the corner of his eyes. After confirming that it was indeed 10 white crystal coins, he finally retreated. Sensing that the dagger was finally far away, Wu Zhao finally heaved a sigh of relief. He couldn't help but look back at Chu Luiwei resentfully and angrily. He raised his finger and pointed at Chu Luiwei. I, Wu Zhao, will remember what happened today. You'd better pray that you don't meet me again. Chu Luiwei smiled and shook the white crystal coins in his hand. You're most welcome. Wu Zhao's face was livid, but he still turned and left in the end. Even after his figure disappeared, the square was still silent. The outcome of the matter was completely different from what they had expected. It was no wonder that they were so shocked. Chu Luiwei kept the 10 white crystal coins, walked to Jian Fengqi, and patted his chinkoan bag. First bucket of gold. Although this amount of money was nothing to her, it was better to have more. With these, her days in Shilling City should be a little easier. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. First bucket of gold. How could this girl have the nerve to say that? He thought that his skin was already thick enough, but he didn't expect Chu Luiwei to be even thicker. She was probably the first person to steal money from the guards of the teleportation portal. No matter what, after this battle, Chu Luiwei's name would definitely spread quickly in Shilling City. You really dare to kill that Wu Zhao? Jian Fengqi asked. No matter what, he is still a disciple of a sect. Chu Luiwei glanced at him and suddenly revealed a bright smile. Don't I have young Master Jian's protection? Jian Fengqi. When did this young master say? Jian Fengqi was about to refute when he saw the teasing look in Chu Luiwei's eyes and suddenly understood. That's right. He was the one who brought Chu Luiwei here. Didn't that mean that Chu Luiwei was on his side? The people of Eight Paths sect didn't have the guts to openly oppose him. Even if Chu Luiwei really killed Wu Zhao today, they wouldn't dare to do anything in private. What's more, so many people saw clearly that Chu Luiwei did win this battle with his own ability. If you agree to bet, you must accept defeat. No wonder she was so confident. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. You really know how to take advantage of the situation. You haven't even entered the Western Tomb, and you've already offended 2 sections. I don't know if I should say you're brave, or the first one has nothing to do with me. Don't worry, they'll definitely count you in. So now we're even. Jian Fengqi suddenly felt that something was wrong. This girl really didn't want to suffer any losses. Since this matter has been resolved, we should go. Jian Fengqi raised his chin. Chu Luiwei readily agreed. The two left Pingliang Square just like that, leaving behind countless gazes. After walking for some distance, Jian Fengqi turned his head and looked at Chu Luiwei several times and couldn't help but ask curiously. Although you have some strength, you've offended so many people. Are you really not afraid at all? Chu Luiwei looked at the towering city gate in front of her and smiled. What do I have to be afraid of? The people she wanted to deal with were the noblest existences in Western Tomb City. Or were these small shrimps to her? They were just appetizers. When she returned this time, she had already made up her mind to completely overturn the entire Western Tomb. Seeing the surging waves in Chu Luiwei's eyes, Jian Fengqi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chu Luiwei's aura was somewhat strange, as if it contained killing intent. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows and smiled, then walked toward the city gate. The West Hill must be very exciting. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 476. The city gates of Shilling were made of gilded copper. They were thick and tall, and it was rumored that even a level 8 warrior could barely leave a shallow mark on them. It was impossible to break them open. The city walls were made of grayish-green rocks, and they were extremely hard. Thousands of years of wind and frost had added a touch of vicissitudes to this ancient and sacred imperial capital. There were a total of 3 entrances to the city gates. The one in the middle was the largest, and only the noblest people of the Tianling dynasty could pass through it. Under normal circumstances, this entrance was tightly locked. A golden plaque hung on it with the words Shieling written on it. It was majestic, solemn, and majestic. The side entrances on both sides were for ordinary people to enter and exit. Although they were smaller than the entrance in the middle, each entrance could still accommodate hundreds of people entering and exiting at the same time. There were hundreds of black cavalry guards near each entrance. Anyone who entered or exited Shieling had to go through a strict examination. Even so, there were still many people coming and going, and it was very lively. As the imperial capital of the Tianling dynasty, countless cultivators came here every day as if they were on a pilgrimage. Chu Luiwei and Jian Fengqi walked forward with the crowd. However, probably because the two of them were too beautiful and many people had seen the commotion in Pingliang Square, there seemed to be a transparent barrier around the two of them, isolating them from the rest. When they walked to the entrance, a guard standing in front looked up and saw Jian Fengqi. He immediately said respectfully, "I've seen." Jian Fengqi waved his hand and threw the token in his hand over. "I'm bringing someone." The guard could tell that Jian Fengqi did not want to be ostentatious and couldn't help but be amazed. In the entire Shieling, this lord was definitely the one who liked to be lively. It was rare for him to be so low-key this time. His gaze fell on Chu Luiwei, and a trace of amazement flashed across his eyes. "This is..." Chu Luiwei handed the token over. "Country Yao Chun, Chu Luiwei." So he came from outside Heaven's Canopy and was only a level 3 warrior? However, since he could come with Jian Fengqi, he had to give him face. He examined Chu Luiwei's token and was shocked. This was clearly Vice Admiral Mu's token. It seemed that this girl's background was more complicated than he imagined. He respectfully returned the token to the two and looked at Chu Luiwei. "You came at the right time. The Wanjin competition will begin tomorrow. As long as they registered at Xianli Garden, they could officially participate in the competition tomorrow." Chu Luiwei was stunned. Wanjin competition? But she had never heard of it. Upon seeing Chu Luiwei's expression, the person thought that she didn't know where Xianli Garden was. "Do you need someone to take you there?" Chu Luiwei subconsciously. I'll ask young Master Jian for help. There's no need to trouble yourself." Jian Fengqi raised his brows. This girl seemed to be quite handy with him. The guard was shocked. He carefully glanced at Jian Fengqi and was slightly relieved when he saw that he wasn't angry. "That's right. I will naturally bring her there." Jian Fengqi gestured at Chu Luiwei. "Follow this young master." Chu Luiwei smiled faintly and followed him. Xian Garden was a famous royal garden in Shieling City. It had been there since the Taizu era. She used to like to go there when she was free. She didn't expect that the first place she wanted to go was there. Jian Fengqi walked in front, waving a green jade fan in his hand. Xian Garden is a good place. You can go in and take a look later. In the past, not everyone could enter that place. Chu Luiwei could tell that there was a hidden meaning in his words. She pretended to be curious and took the opportunity to ask, "In the past?" "Forget about the garden in the past. There's no point in talking to you about it. Anyway, the scenery is good." Chu Luiwei tactfully changed the topic. "What's the Wanjun competition about? Vice Admiral Mu didn't mention it to me before." Jian Fengqi paused. He put away his green jade fan and rested it on his chin. "It's just some boring competition. You'll know when you go there tomorrow." Anyway, in his eyes, this was just what Shangguan Wan and the others said. They inexplicably held this Wanjun competition in the name of grooming geniuses into powerhouses. But who knew what they were up to? Seeing that Jian Fengqi didn't think much of it, Chu Luiwei nodded lightly and didn't ask any more questions. The two of them walked forward and soon arrived at Xian Garden. However, when they arrived at the entrance of Xian Garden, Chu Luiwei acutely sensed that there were several powerhouses hidden here. Several scrutinizing gazes swept over her. Chu Luiwei pretended not to notice and obediently followed behind Jian Fengqi. Two servants stood in front of Xian Garden's entrance. Chu Luiwei quickly scanned them. As expected, they were two unfamiliar faces. However, the two clearly recognized Jian Fengqi. Their originally cold and stern faces immediately revealed eager smiles. Greetings, young Master Jian. Jian Fengqi waved his green jade fan impatiently. How does one register for the Wan Zheng competition? The two's gazes fell on Chu Luiwei. Needless to say, this was the person who wanted to register. However, Jian Fengqi didn't seem to be on the list of people to bring, right? However, they didn't dare to ask and respectfully said, "Please come in. Please come in. The registration area is at Xiao Fu Garden. There will naturally be someone to help you there." Jian Fengqi winked at Chu Luiwei and walked in first. Chu Luiwei's expression didn't change as she followed behind him and stepped through the door. A strong fragrance assailed her nostrils. It was mixed with a faint bitterness, but it was refreshing. Xianli Garden occupied a large area and planted a large number of herbs. That was why the entire garden was filled with this fragrance. Herbs that were rarely seen outside could be found everywhere here. Chu Yue's gaze swept lightly across the surrounding grass and trees. She sighed softly in her heart. Her mother had died, and her subordinates were homeless. However, these herbs had been preserved in perfect condition. Oh, she had almost forgotten. Shangguan Wan was also a celestial physician. She had personally cultivated these things back then, but in the end, Shangguan Wan had benefited from all of them. At this thought, Chu Yue's gaze turned cold. However, it disappeared in an instant, and her expression quickly returned to normal. Because there was something that couldn't be ignored. There were even more hidden cultivators in Xianli Garden. Along the way, she felt like she had been checked over and over again. Jian Fengqi obviously noticed this as well. His expression turned cold. After walking through the front courtyard and bypassing the 7-star bridge, the two finally arrived at Xiaofu Garden. A man who looked to be about 30 years old was sitting quietly behind a table. Hearing footsteps, the man looked up. When he saw Jian Fengqi, he smiled. "I was wondering who it was." "So it's you." Jian Fengqi frowned. "Lu Xingyi, why are you here?" "Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. The third princess sent me here. Where else would I be if not here?" As Lu Xingyi spoke, he looked at Chu Luiwei with a playful expression. "Is this the person you brought with you?" A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 477. A Stage 3 Warrior. Jian Fengqi. Can't you find a more outstanding cultivator? Before this, the lowest registration was at the peak of Stage 4. I think you guys should just not participate in this Wanzheng competition. Lu Xingyi said sarcastically. Chu Luiwei felt disgusted. Lu Xingyi was one of Shangguan Wan's confidants. He was sinister and cunning. She disliked this person very much back then, but Shangguan Wan always used the reason that he had saved her life before to speak up for him, so she turned a blind eye to it. Moreover, Jian Fengqi had a bad relationship with him. Lu Xingyi once had a girl he liked very much, but that girl was infatuated with Jian Fengqi. After being rejected by Jian Fengqi, she shaved her head and became a nun. Because of this, Lu Xingyi had always hated Jian Fengqi. In fact, this matter didn't have much to do with Jian Fengqi. Although he was a playboy and often had affairs with other women, he had always done it willingly and was very gentlemanly. He didn't like that girl, so he directly rejected her. Who knew that things would turn out like this in the end? Lu Xingyi made things difficult for him. At first, Jian Fengqi didn't argue with him, but later on, he realized that Lu Xingyi wouldn't stop and became anxious. The two of them fell out completely. When enemies met, their eyes would naturally turn red. Do you think it's up to you to decide whether to participate or not? I've already brought her here. You know what to do. Jian Fengqi sneered. Lu Xingyi was annoyed when he saw his face. However, there were many people watching in the dark. Of course, he couldn't do something so deceptive in public. Origin, name, age. He flipped open a booklet and picked up a pen. Chu Luiwei said, Country Yao Chun, Chu Luiwei 14. Lu Xingyi's pen paused, and he looked up at her again. She was quite young. Warrior rank. 3rd rank. Lu Xingyi didn't seem to mind and sneered. Chu Luiwei pretended not to hear anything. That's enough. Take this with you and go to Xuanji Square tomorrow morning to participate in the Wanzheng competition. As he spoke, Lu Xingyi handed over a red string bracelet with a Longan-sized bronze bead strung on it. This represents your identity. If you lose it, it will automatically be considered as a forfeit. Chu Luiwei took the bracelet. Thank you, Lord Lu. Something flashed across Lu Xingyi's eyes as he stared at Chu Luiwei and laughed mysteriously. You're quite sensible. Although she came with Jian Fengqi, she was indeed a stunning beauty. Maybe I can find a chance to. Chu Luiwei pretended not to see the intention in his eyes. Jian Fengqi grabbed her arm. Let's go. This place is foul. I can't stay here a moment longer. Chu Luiwei staggered, but she didn't feel dissatisfied with Jian Fengqi. Instead, she curved her lips and said in an inaudible voice, Thank you. Jian Fengqi glanced at her in annoyance. Did this girl know what kind of person Lu Xingyi was? Be careful of this person in the future. Chu Luiwei rarely felt that Jian Fengqi was so pleasing to the eye. Her smile deepened. I know. Jian Fengqi felt inexplicably weak from her smile. He let go of her arm and walked forward quickly. Chu Luiwei said slowly from behind, Young Master Jian, don't walk so fast. You still have to send me off. Jian Fengqi suddenly stopped. Did he owe Chu Luiwei and Mu Qinghe in his previous life? Hurry up and go. The two figures gradually disappeared into the distance. Lu Xingyi's expression quickly changed and became much more respectful. Seniors, what do you think of this Chu Luiwei? Xiaofu Garden was silent. Only the sound of the wind rustling the leaves could be heard. After a moment, a hoarse voice sounded. Daijing Yuan Meridian, medium. Lu Xingyi was shocked. Chu Luiwei, who was only a stage 3 warrior, had such a good Yuan Meridian? But if he had such talent, how could he only reach stage 3 at the age of 14? This matter didn't make sense. But even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare to question this judgment. He flipped open the book and added a small medium below Chu Luiwei's name. Chu Luiwei and Jian Fengqi arrived at the Mu residence. Seeing the familiar door, Chu Luiwei was a little dazed for a moment. As the Deputy General of the Black Cavalry, Mu Qinghe had a high position and was given a residence early on. He had always been diligent and thrifty, so he didn't care much about such things. Back then, Chu Luiwei was the one who helped him pick this courtyard. Even the decorations were mostly done according to her preferences. He didn't expect that with the passage of time, he was still living here safely. The corners of Chu Luiwei's mouth moved slightly. He wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. This scene was too ironic. Outside the Mu residence, there were two soldiers in black armor guarding the entrance. Seeing Jian Fengqi, one of them immediately stepped forward. Welcome, young Master Jian. Jian Fengqi asked, Where's your master? I personally brought him back. Why isn't he coming out? The soldier said respectfully, Young Master Jian, the Deputy General is not in the residence right now. But before he left, he said that if you bring someone here, you can go in directly. Not here. Where'd he go? Jian Fengqi asked casually. The two soldiers looked at each other awkwardly. This subordinate doesn't know. Jian Fengqi snorted. Although Xiling City was big, there were only a few places Mu Qinghe would go. He waved the green jade fan in his hand. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. This Miss Chu was personally invited by your Deputy General. You must serve her well, understand? The two soldiers glanced at Chu Luiwei, but their expressions were very calm. Yes, Chu Luiwei thought self-deprecatingly. These soldiers were indeed personally trained by Mu Qinghe. Faced with her appearance and cultivation level, they didn't show the same expression as the others. They looked at her as if she was a piece of wood. Mu Qinghe always led soldiers with strict military discipline. This was also why he could win every battle. Jian Fengqi turned around and winked at Chu Luiwei. Go by yourself. Chu Luiwei thanked him again. After Jian Fengqi really left, she stepped over the threshold. One of the soldiers quickly walked up to them. Miss Chu, please follow me. There were no servants or maids in the Mu residence. Those who served here were all soldiers of the Black Cavalry. Chu Luiwei nodded slightly and followed. She had just taken 2 steps when she suddenly heard a strange movement beside her. Chu Luiwei seemed to have sensed something and turned her head to look. A green shadow quickly flew towards her. It was Hong Yao. Chu Luiyue smiled. Hong Yao, long time no see. Before she finished speaking, the smile on her face suddenly froze. There was a trace of scarlet blood under Hong Yao's wings. Digression. Ah. Today's update is complete. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Iowa. Chapter 478. However, the red demon quickly landed on Chu Luiyue's shoulder and retracted its wings. The soldier leading the way did not notice this abnormality. The other shoulder sank slightly. Dumpling had also come out. She crossed her arms and glared at the red demon. Just as Chu Luiyue thought that she was going to cause trouble for the red demon again, Dumpling curled its tail and obediently squatted on her shoulder. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. It was quite rare that these two did not fight when they met. Chu Luiyue looked at the soldier in front of her and saw that he was looking at her with a shocked expression. Is there something on my face? Chu Luiyue asked. No. The soldier suddenly came back to his senses and quickly lowered his head. However, the waves in his heart did not calm down for a long time. The red demon was actually so intimate with this Miss Chu. One had to know that other than Vice Admiral Mu, no one else could even touch it. He really did not know how this Miss Chu did it. However, the soldiers who could enter the Mu clan were all well trained. Although he was very shocked and puzzled by this matter, his expression quickly returned to normal. Miss Chu, this way, please. Chu Luiyue followed him to a small courtyard behind the Mu clan. The deputy general said that since you're here, you can stay in Wind Lotus Courtyard for the time being. This place has been cleaned up inside and out. You can rest at ease. During this period of time, I will be in charge of all the affairs of Miss Chu. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly and asked with a smile, Thank you. Thank you. How should I address you? I'm Duan Ziyu, a lieutenant of the Black Cavalry. Duan Ziyu straightened his shoulders and said with full of energy, Thank you, Lieutenant Duan. Miss Chu, you're welcome. Chu Luiyue pointed inside. Then I'll go in first. Duan Ziyu said, Please. Chu Luiyue walked towards Wind Lotus Courtyard. She didn't need to turn around to know that Duan Ziyu was standing guard at the entrance of the courtyard. In fact, she could sense that Duan Ziyu was not the only one. There were many people hiding in all directions of Wind Lotus Garden. Whether it was protection or surveillance, Chu Luiyue didn't care. Since they were already in West Hill, there were still many things to do. She walked into the room and closed the doors and windows. As soon as she sat down, she went to see Hong Yao. Hong Yao obediently let her hold it. Chu Luiyue opened his wings and took a look. Sure enough, there was a shallow wound. The bloodstains had dried up, and the wound had just scabbed over. It looked like a recent injury, but fortunately, it was not fatal. But the point was that Red Demon was a high-level demon beast, and everyone knew that it was Mu Qinghe's demon beast. Who would be so bold to hurt it? Who? Chu Luiyue asked briefly with a frown. Hong Yao just hugged her hand and pressed her head tightly against her palm. In her clear and beautiful ruby-like eyes, there was a trace of rare sadness and grief. A drop of hot tear fell silently from his eyes. Chu Luiyue felt a pain in her heart. She had always loved Hong Yao and couldn't bear to see it sad like this. What's wrong? Who bullied you? Chu Luiyue gently wiped its tears and asked softly. In West Hill, Hong Yao could be called tyrant. There are not many people who could bully it. Hong Yao just shook its head. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. If it was injured in a normal fight, it would definitely not react like this. It seemed that it was more related to Mu Qinghe. Where did your master go? Chu Luiyue asked. Hong Yao didn't move and refused to say anything. Chu Luiyue had no choice but to touch its head gently. Mu Qinghe's situation didn't look too good. Hong Yao soon fell asleep in her hands. Chu Luiyue carefully put it down. Dumpling, on the other hand, was squatting obediently at the side. Chu Luiyue felt a little relieved. She glanced at the bracelet on her wrist, hesitated for a moment, and took it off. She sat cross-legged and placed her hands on her knees. She closed her eyes and began to cultivate. When she broke through to become a Stage 3 warrior last time, Everything happened too suddenly. She didn't have time to examine her situation properly. Now, she could finally calm down. In her dantian, on the water droplet, 3 lines were floating quietly. In a heavenly square cauldron, the transparent hellfire was constantly burning. The soul trapped in it was now on the verge of death. Chu Liwen knew that it would still take some time to refine it, so she didn't care too much. Purple gold Bodhi leaf. The legendary 3-eyed eagle suddenly spoke. Chu Liwen was taken aback. What? If you want to help me recover my physical body, you need the purple gold Bodhi leaf. There is such a thing in the garden you went to today. The legendary 3-eyed eagle explained. Chu Liwen frowned slightly. Xianli garden? There's no such thing there. There is. My senses can't be wrong. No, Chu Liwen instinctively wanted to deny it. She was the one who took care of most of the herbs in Xianli garden. Of course, she knew what was inside. At least when she was around, there was definitely no purple gold Bodhi leaf in the garden. Because to the entire Tianling dynasty, it was only a herb that existed in legends. Moreover, purple gold Bodhi leaf was an extremely precious herb. Legend had it that a leaf's fragrance could spread for hundreds of miles. If it really existed in Xianli garden, why didn't she feel it all? Did you make a mistake? Chu Liwen couldn't help but ask. The legendary 3-eyed eagle's voice was a little cold. Purple gold Bodhi leaf is the sacred tree of the legendary 3-eyed eagle clan. How could I be wrong? Chu Liwen was speechless. There was no need for the legendary 3-eyed eagle to lie to her. Then could it be that someone put it there after she died? But did Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing have the ability to get the purple gold Bodhi leaf? Then, do you know where the purple gold Bodhi leaf is? I know the approximate location, but there are many obstacles outside. Moreover, the 1,000-year-old purple gold Bodhi leaf is sentient. Not only does it have amazing defensive power, but it is also very good at hiding. Even if ordinary people see it with their own eyes, they won't be able to recognize it, let alone get it. With your current ability, it's basically a pipe dream. Chu Liwen, then what's the point of telling me this? She said faintly. So, you told me this just to humiliate me? Of course not. I don't have the leisure to do that. Can't you talk properly? Ordinary people can't even get close to the purple gold Bodhi leaf, let alone get it. But if you have my aura on you, this won't be a problem. Chu Liwen frowned slightly. You're in my dantian. As long as you can't hide, my body will be tainted with your aura. Isn't that enough? Of course not. The legendary 3-eyed eagle paused for a moment before saying, My physical body is now destroyed, and only my spirit is left. It has nothing to do with you. Although my aura can overflow from your body, it has nothing to do with your own aura. Chu Liwen asked, Then what should I do? The legendary 3-eyed eagle didn't speak for a long time. Just when Chu Liwen thought that it wasn't going to speak, its voice finally sounded. I recognize you as my master, so I'll take the purple gold Bodhi leaf. You can read it from the Love Network for a better reading experience. Chapter 479. Chu Liwen took a while to react. The legendary 3-eyed eagle actually took the initiative to speak and wanted to recognize her as its master. It was simply unbelievable. Even ordinary magical beasts were unwilling to recognize humans as their masters, let alone a supreme divine beast like the legendary 3-eyed eagle. Even if a pie fell from the sky, it wouldn't fall like this. Chu Liwen was a little stunned by this sudden sentence. You're serious? If you dare to say that you're not willing, you're dead. The legendary 3-eyed eagle said fiercely. Its voice was so cold that it could freeze 3,000 miles. If not for the sake of recovering its physical body, how could it be willing to recognize a human as its master? In the entire history of the legendary 3-eyed eagle clan, there was almost no such thing. It felt more uncomfortable than anyone else, and more unwilling than anyone else. But this was the only way. It had been burned in the heavenly square cauldron for thousands of years. The endless torment of the long nights had caused it unbearable pain. Its mind and will had long been destroyed countless times. If not for its last bit of obsession, it would have long been unable to hold on and died in the endless flames. Over time, this had already become its last pillar of support. So, it must find a way to recover its physical body and return to its previous peak. Chu Liwa coughed. This kind of thing, I think everyone would wish for it, right? But I already have Dumpling. I'm afraid this will be a little difficult. As she spoke, she opened her eyes. As expected, she saw Dumpling staring fiercely at her lower abdomen. Its entire body was filled with surging, murderous intent. It looked like if Chu Liwa agreed, it would immediately fight. The legendary three-eyed eagle sneered with undisguised pride. I'm a divine beast. Naturally, I'm not restricted by this rule. The saying that a person could only have one magical beast at a time was a rule for ordinary magical beasts. But to a divine beast, this was not a problem at all. Chu Liwa opened her eyes slightly. This was the first time she had heard of such a thing. So divine beasts were really so capable. Dumpling bared its teeth and let out a threatening roar. Its two claws were clenched into fists. It wanted to fight this fellow to the death. Chu Liwa was caught in a dilemma. On one hand, she didn't want Dumpling to be unhappy, but on the other hand, she really did want to help the legendary three-eyed eagle recover its physical body. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "There should be other ways, right?" The legendary three-eyed eagle sneered. "Of course there is. As long as your strength reaches the 8th rank, the success rate will greatly increase." Chu Liwa, she was only a rank 3 warrior now. Who knew how long it would take for her to break through to rank 8? Chu Liwa looked at Dumpling. "Dumpling, let me ask you again seriously. What is your stance on this matter?" If he agreed, he would nod. If he didn't, he would shake his head. "Whatever you say, that's what it is, okay?" Dumpling was stunned and looked at her blankly. It didn't expect that Chu Liwa would let it make a decision. It was indeed jealous. Whenever it thought that Chu Liwa would no longer belong to it alone, it felt very uncomfortable. It had found her with great difficulty. But when she asked it so sincerely and seriously, it suddenly didn't know what to do. In this world, if someone could get a divine beast, how ecstatic would they be? They probably wouldn't even blink if they were asked to kill their own magical beast with their own hands. But she said that whatever it said was what it said was. In this world, there would be no one else like her. Dumpling's eyes turned sour. It quickly turned around and wiped its eyes with its tail. The legendary three-eyed eagle said coldly, "Let it in. I will talk to it personally." Chu Liwa was a little surprised. After she said those words, the legendary three-eyed eagle was actually angry. She had thought that the prideful three-eyed eagle clan would fly into a rage out of humiliation after being compared to a third-grade magical beast, and even be judged by the third-grade magical beast whether or not it could recognize a human as its master. Dumpling wiped its tears and looked deeply at Chu Liwa before entering her dantian. The two magical beasts looked at each other across the heavenly square cauldron. Chu Liwa knew that magical beasts had their ways of communicating. Unfortunately, she didn't know what they were talking about, so she waited quietly. The legendary three-eyed eagle looked at Dumpling with a trace of ridicule in its eyes. It used telepathy to send a message. Normal magical beasts can't withstand the pressure of a divine beast. Even if they can recognize the same master, they will quickly explode and die. However, you don't have this concern at all. What's there to object? Dumpling stared at it and didn't say anything. Don't you know that the bloodline of the divine beast in my body is also beneficial to you? Do you really want to be a third-grade blood ferret for the rest of your life? Are you willing? Dumpling clenched its claws and trembled slightly. Even if you are willing, with her potential, she will definitely reach the top of this continent in the future. When that time comes, what can you do to help her? The last sentence of the legendary three-eyed eagle was the last straw that broke the camel's back. In Tuan Zi's glass-like eyes, there seemed to be stars shining brightly for a moment. It finally said, "Remember, I am number one. Don't even think about fighting for it." The legendary three-eyed eagle seemed to laugh. "You are finally willing to admit it. In this world, anyone who could call themselves that." Dumpling didn't pay any more attention to it. It turned and left quickly. The next moment, it appeared in front of Chu Luiwei again. "How was your conversation?" Chu Luiwei asked. Dumpling's expression had returned to its usual expression. It frowned and looked like it was wronged. "If you don't like it, we won't." Dumpling suddenly shook its head. It rushed over and squatted on her shoulder, rubbing its face against hers. Then, he nodded his head gently. Chu Luiwei was stunned. "Dumpling, you agree?" Dumpling buried its head in its tail and didn't move. However, its meaning couldn't be more obvious. It actually agreed. Chu Luiwei's heart was filled with doubts. According to her understanding of Dumpling, it shouldn't be too willing. She really didn't know what the two of them were talking about just now. She was happy and distressed. She pinched Dumpling's ear. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, "Let's begin." Chu Luiwei grunted. Whoosh! The sound of wings flapping suddenly came. Chu Luiwei looked up. A black phantom of the legendary three-eyed eagle appeared in front of her. "I have already sealed the surroundings. No one will notice." The legendary three-eyed eagle didn't open its mouth, but its voice fell clearly into Chu Luiwei's ears. Chu Luiwei nodded. "Now, cut open your palm and pledge your blood to me." Chu Luiwei used a dagger to gently cut her palm. Blood gushed out. Buzz! A slowly rotating silver disc suddenly appeared in front of her. She sensed a divine and dignified aura emanating from it. She was slightly shocked. This seemed to be the aura of the heavenly Tao. The legendary three-eyed eagle chanted in a low voice, "The heavenly Tao is above. I swear on the bloodline of the legendary three-eyed eagle clan. Chu Luiwei is my master. From now on, I'll be loyal and do my best, and I'll never betray you." Chapter 480. A strange pattern gradually appeared on the disc. Suddenly, Chu Luiwei felt that there was a vast and subtle aura in her body. That was the legendary three-eyed eagle. Immediately after, the surrounding heaven and earth energy suddenly started to surge towards her silently. The speed of devouring was actually several times faster than when she was cultivating. Chu Luiwei was slightly shocked, but she still subconsciously absorbed the energy and transformed it into her own body. After some time, the commotion finally stopped. The disc suddenly transformed into a stream of light and brought the black legendary three-eyed eagle phantom into Chu Luiwei's body. Chu Luiwei clearly felt that something was different. There was another wisp of Heaven Dao's power in her body. She slowly lowered her head and looked at her hands. In this short period of time, her strength had increased by a lot. It was almost to the point of touching the barrier of a rank 4 warrior. If an ordinary rank 3 warrior contracted a divine beast and accepted the Heaven Dao's power, they would at least break through to the peak of rank 4 or even rank 5. You actually didn't even cross the threshold of a rank 4 warrior. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly said. Chu Luiwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she shrugged. She originally thought that she had advanced quite a bit, but she didn't expect that. But her body did have this problem, and she was basically used to it. This is good too. Although relying on external forces to break through quickly can increase one's realm quickly, it might not be a good thing. She now hoped that she could spar with someone to strengthen her foundation. The Wanzhong competition was an excellent opportunity. The next morning, Chu Luiwei simply packed up and went out. Duan Ziyu was waiting outside the courtyard. Seeing him, Chu Luiwei then remembered that she was busy with the legendary three-eyed eagle yesterday and actually forgot about Mu Qinghe. "Is Vice Admiral Mu back?" she asked. Duan Ziyu said respectfully. "Lieutenant General came back last night and left an hour ago." "Left? What's so urgent?" Chu Luiwei was a little surprised. Why was Mu Qinghe so busy? The injuries on his body shouldn't have fully recovered yet, right? "I don't know about that. The Deputy General asked me to bring you to the Wanzhong competition." Chu Luiwei smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Lieutenant Duan." When he woke up in the morning, Hong Yao had already left. She must have gone to find Mu Qinghe. Actually, she wanted to see him, but now was not the time. She could only wait. "The next time Vice Admiral Mu comes back, please inform me, Lieutenant Duan." I have something to discuss with Vice Admiral Mu. Because of Hong Yao, Duan Ziyu was more polite to Chu Luiyue. Don't worry, Miss Chu. With that, the two of them headed to the Xuanji Square together. On the main street, people were already coming and going. It was very lively. Most of them were heading in the same direction. Chu Luiyue and Duan Ziyu followed the crowd forward. Although Duan Ziyu was wearing black armor, because the black cavalry was everywhere in Xiling, he didn't attract much attention. Instead, it was Chu Luiyue who attracted a lot of attention. No matter where she went, her alluring face would become the most eye-catching existence. Who is that girl? Why haven't I seen her in Xiling City before? With such beauty, she definitely isn't a nobody. She must have come from outside Heaven's Canopy to participate in the Wanzheng competition. Ah, I recognize her. She's the girl who defeated Wu Zhao yesterday. Seems like I got it right. Chu Luiyue. It was unknown who suddenly said this, but it caused quite a commotion in the crowd. As a beginner Stage 5 warrior, Wu Zhao was defeated by a Stage 3 warrior in Pingliang Square. He was even asked for 10 white crystal coins by the other party before he could escape. This matter had already spread throughout the entire Xiling city. Actually, a battle of this level normally wouldn't attract so many people's attention. After all, there were many powerful figures here. But the difference between the two people's levels was too big. Jumping so many levels to battle and winning in the end naturally made everyone very curious. They didn't expect it to be her. Chu Luiyue was already used to such gazes and discussions. She completely ignored them and walked forward. Instead, it was Duan Ziyu who couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. Actually, he already heard about this matter yesterday. But thinking about it now, he still felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. Especially on this day of interacting with Chu Luiyue, the feeling she gave people was gentle and noble from beginning to end. Not like that kind of ruthless character at all. But the person personally selected by the Deputy General was naturally not ordinary. Furthermore, he clearly felt that the aura on Chu Luiyue's body was actually much stronger than yesterday. This girl might really be hiding her abilities. Xuanji Square was the second largest square in the entire Xiling city. It was enough to accommodate 100,000 people at the same time. Chu Luiyue arrived with the crowd and saw the all too familiar square. Around it were circular steps. At this time, there were already many people waiting on top, clearly wanting to watch the show. After all, in this Wanzheng competition, all the participants were cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. One could imagine how exciting the competition would be. Around the competition grounds, the black cavalry were dressed in armor and holding spears, neatly lined up. And on the square, there were also many people standing scattered around. At a rough glance, there were at least 200 to 300 people, and there were still people going up continuously. Those people were obviously cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Among those people, there were actually a few familiar faces. This Wanzheng competition didn't seem to be specially prepared for cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian outside Heaven's Canopy. Some of the younger generation's geniuses in Xiling City had also come. What exactly were Shangwan Wan and the rest planning to do? Miss Chu, I can only send you here, Duan Ziyu said in a low voice. I will wait for you there. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly and walked forward. When she reached the edge of the square, 2 soldiers blocked her way. Please show your identity. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and raised her hand, showing the bracelet on her wrist to the 2 of them. The 2 of them confirmed it before retreating. Please, Chu Luiyue had just gone up when she heard whispers from the side. One of the voices was rather familiar. She turned her head to look. She saw a few people standing together, pointing at her and whispering to each other. The person in the middle was Zhao Yunji, who had a grudge with her the day before. When she noticed Chu Luiyue looking over, she didn't feel guilty. Instead, she sneered and raised her voice. Yes, it's her. The few people beside her looked disgusted. She's really just a Stage 3 cultivator? Where did she get the guts to offend our soaring cloud sect? She doesn't look old, but she's very arrogant. Zhao Yunji's eyes flashed with a hint of smugness as she walked in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue, I want to challenge you. Do you dare to accept? Chapter 481. Of course, Chu Luiyue wouldn't reject someone who was rushing to her death. You're welcome. Zhao Yunji didn't expect Chu Luiyue to agree so easily. She didn't have the chance to say the threats and sarcastic words she had prepared. She couldn't help but feel aggrieved. She said in a low voice, "You can be as arrogant as you want. Later, you'll know the consequences of offending the Soaring Cloud sect." In Shilin City, there were many sects and factions. The Soaring Cloud sect was one of the best. It was undeniably a first-rate sect. Chu Luiyue's gaze swept across the people behind her. From their clothes and the symbol on their left chest, she could tell that they were young disciples of the Soaring Cloud sect. However, she wasn't very familiar with them, other than the Soaring Cloud sect master and a few elders, whom she had seen more often. The other disciples were rarely seen. Sensing Chu Yue's gaze, Zhao Yunji thought that she was afraid and said proudly, "You don't have to look. There's no need to look anymore. Those are the most outstanding geniuses among the younger generation of the Soaring Cloud sect. With your background and strength, it's impossible for you to be on par with them in your entire life. If I didn't persuade them this time, they would have already taken action for me. At that time, you wouldn't even be able to leave this square standing." She moved closer and stared at Chu Luiyue, then sneered, "You don't have to thank me. There's no need to thank me. I just wanted to deal with you personally." Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. This Zhao Yunji looked gentle and harmless, but her heart was ruthless. Unfortunately, there was something wrong with her brain. Previously, in the northern borderline, Chen Shiyuan was defeated by Jian Fengqi in one move. Even if they didn't know Jian Fengqi, they should have done a private investigation to confirm the opponent's identity. Moreover, Jian Fengqi's appearance was very special. It wasn't hard to find out if they asked around. However, it was obvious that they didn't ask anything after returning to Shilin. Did they really think that they were invincible with just the Soaring Cloud sect? The Soaring Cloud sect was good, but in Shilin, there were many stronger sections. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. "I'm looking forward to it." Seeing that Chu Luiyue was so stubborn, Zhao Yunji was annoyed. She said angrily, "Then come with me to sort the items now. My opponent for the first round will be you." Chu Luiyue frowned. "Sort? Huh? You don't even know such an important thing." Zhao Yunji widened her eyes in amusement and mockery as she looked at Chu Luiyue with disdain. "It's probably because your background is too lowly, so no one is willing to tell you, right?" Chu Luiyue scanned her surroundings and indeed saw two elders in white robes standing in the middle of the square. In front of them was a gigantic black jade board. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that it was a list of names. The names were arranged in pairs in order. In front of the jade board, there were also many people standing in pairs. They seemed to be waiting for the two old men to write their names. "The first round is done in pairs?" Chu Luiyue asked with narrowed eyes. "Of course. Moreover, this is only the preliminaries. After this round, it will be considered the official competition, and those who are eliminated in this round will be kicked out." Therefore, Zhao Yunji decided to step on Chu Luiyue from the start. "Why? You don't dare?" Chu Luiyue chuckled. "Why wouldn't I dare? Just go." With that, she walked towards the center. Zhao Yunji looked at her carefree expression and thought to herself, "Let's see how long you can pretend to be dumb." On the square, although everyone seemed to be standing casually, they were all secretly observing others. Who knew which one of them would be his opponent in the next round? There was no harm in knowing more about it. Chu Luiyue and Zhao Yunji walked over one after another and immediately attracted the attention of many people. There was no other reason. It was because Chu Luiyue was the only Stage 3 warrior in the square. It was impossible not to be conspicuous. Some people's gazes toward Chu Luiyue immediately became strange. "Are you kidding me? There's actually a Stage 3 warrior participating? She's really bold. Doesn't she know how cruel the competition is? Or is she just here to have fun? Ah, this is Xi Ling. Who dares to say that they're here to have fun? I'm envious of the girl beside her. She's definitely going to win this round. Why didn't I notice it just now?" Chu Luiyue pretended not to hear anything and quietly queued up. Soon, it was her and Zhao Yunji's turn. Just put the beads on your bracelets here. One of the elders pointed at a groove at the bottom of the jade board. I'll go first. Zhao Yunji was one step ahead of him and placed her bead on it. The bronze bead emitted a faint light. Then, a name suddenly appeared in the empty space on the jade board. Zhao Yunji. Below her name, a small line of words appeared at the same time and quickly disappeared. Chu Luiwei, who was standing nearby, could clearly see that the line of words said, Soaring Cloud Sect, Chen Shiyuan. This was an indication of her identity. The two old men glanced at each other and nodded their heads. The old man standing on the left even had a smile on his face. I heard that you're only 17 years old this year and are already at the beginner stage of Stage 5. Not bad. If you perform well, Soaring Cloud Sect will have another outstanding disciple. Zhao Yunji was flattered. Thank you, Elder Qiushi. Before she came, she had heard from her cousin that Elder Qiushi was also from Soaring Cloud Sect. Although he later became an elder in the palace, he had always taken care of Soaring Cloud Sect. Elder Qiushi was even more satisfied that the girl in front of him knew his name. Chu Liwei couldn't help but curl her lips. Chen Shiyuan and Zhao Yunji arrived as Ling later than her. But in just one night, Zhao Yunji not only knew the process of the competition, she even knew the identity of the exam elder. It could be said that she didn't put in any effort. Who are you in a group with? Elder Qiushi asked. Zhao Yunji smiled sweetly and pointed at Chu Luiwei behind her. It's her. Seeing that Chu Luiwei was only a Stage 3 warrior, Elder Qiushi's smile faded a little. You just have to follow what she did before. Chu Luiwei didn't mind his cold attitude. She stepped forward and put the bead into the groove. A faint glow flashed. On the jade board, her name finally appeared next to Zhao Yunji's name, Chu Luiwei. Soon, a small line of words appeared below. Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Fengqi. Chu Luiwei blinked. That's not right. She was brought here by Mu Qinghe. How could Jian Fengqi be here? Lu Xingyi didn't even ask yesterday. He must have thought that she was brought here by Jian Fengqi. However, Zhao Yunji's expression froze. Jian Fengqi, the rumored tyrant of Ling City, the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. Jian Fengqi? Digression. Your phone has been fixed. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 482. She subconsciously wanted to deny this conjecture, but that line of words was clear. Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Fengqi. In the entire Ling City, there was only one Dragon Teeth Mountain and only one Jian Fengqi. She only knew this person because she had heard her cousin mention him when they were chatting. Dragon Teeth Mountain and Soaring Cloud Sect had been enemies for many years, and they had always disliked each other. In his description, this Jian Fengqi was arrogant, unruly, and had no regard for the law. He had even scolded the 9 elders of Soaring Cloud Sect to their faces. The entire Soaring Cloud Sect hated Jian Fengqi to the core. However, he was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. His status was honorable, and he was extremely powerful. Not to mention normal people, most of the aristocratic families in Ling City had to be polite when they saw him. The young man they met that day, could it really be? She felt uneasy and walked to the side with shaky footsteps. When Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu Chun saw Jian Fengqi's name, they were both shocked. When they looked at Chu Luiwei again, their expressions changed slightly. Chu Luiwei put away the pearl and noticed that the duo's expressions were a little off. He asked with a smile, "Is there anything else, elders?" Elder Duanmu Chun shook his head. "Don't worry. Your serial number is 53. Go and prepare." "Yes." Chu Luiwei responded and turned around to walk to the other side. The two elders looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. He didn't seem to be sent out this time, right? But this list was registered after Lu Xingyi met him personally. It can't be wrong. Maybe we just didn't know. Other than that, there seemed to be no other explanation. The people behind them had already walked forward. The two of them stopped and continued to order the items. Zhao Yunji's mind was in a mess. She quickly walked to the soaring cloud sect disciples who were talking with her. Seeing that her expression was not right, they quickly asked, Yunji, what's wrong? Zhao Yunji's fingers twisted together, and she asked anxiously, that Jian Fengqi, what does he look like? They were all stunned. Why are you suddenly asking about him? Zhao Yunji forced a smile. I've heard my cousin mention it before. I'm a little curious. Him? Of course he looks like a scourge. A round-eyed woman had an indignant look on her face, and there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. Another woman smiled and said, Don't scare Yunji. She was just asking. Also, don't let other people see you like this, lest they bring up another troublesome matter. As soon as he said that, the round-eyed woman stomped her feet and restrained herself a little. Jian Fengqi was tall and was even taller than the average man. He was also born with a pair of icy blue eyes. This was the special feature of Dragon Teeth Mountain's bloodline. If you see him, you should be able to recognize him at a glance. However, Jian Fengqi has too many grudges with the Soaring Cloud sect, so it's better not to see him. The more Zhao Yunji listened, the colder her heart became. Sure enough, not only had she met him, she had also severely offended him. That was the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. He was someone who was on equal footing with the elders of the Soaring Cloud sect. Even the Soaring Cloud sect's sect master tolerated him. Her cousin was only one of the close to 200 disciples under the sect master. Fighting with Jian Fengqi was like hitting a rock with an egg. Not to mention her. Zhao Yunji closed her eyes in despair. Even if her cousin hadn't seen Jian Fengqi with his own eyes, he should be able to guess it. What should she do? Yunji, are you okay? Those people asked with concern. Are you too nervous? It's fine. Your opponent, Chu Luiwei, is only a stage 3 warrior. He's definitely not your match. Hearing that, Zhao Yunji's expression became slightly better. That's right. At this point, even if she went to apologize, Chu Luiwei and Jian Fengqi definitely wouldn't go easy on her. Rather than that, she might as well win this round first. As long as she performed well in the Wanzhong competition, they wouldn't be able to do anything to her. Thank you, brothers and sisters. I'll definitely work hard. Your opponent is called Chu Luiwei, right? A young man suddenly thought of something and quickly asked. Zhao Yunji nodded. That young man's expression instantly became very strange. It's actually her. Zhao Yunji and the others were confused. That young man clapped his hands and hurriedly reminded them. Did you guys forget that there was a rumor in Ling City yesterday that a stage 3 girl defeated a stage 5 warrior? I just remembered that the girl's name is Chu Luiwei. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhao Yunji was the most shocked. There's such a thing? How is that possible? Although some warriors can fight above their level, this is too exaggerated. She had been busy with the Wanzhong competition yesterday and didn't know about this rumor. It's true. Many people saw it at Pingliang Square. Everyone suddenly fell silent and looked at Zhao Yunji. Speaking of which, Zhao Yunji was also a beginner stage 5 warrior. Zhao Yunji clenched her fists. So what if the rumor is true? Who knows if it's a coincidence? Or did she use some despicable means? No matter what, Chu Luiwei definitely can't win against me. She could only win today and not lose. While Zhao Yunji was anxious, Chu Luiwei was leisurely and carefree. Jian Fengqi's name was only seen by the few people standing nearby. It hadn't spread, so everyone looked at her the same way as before. She stood there alone, looking calm and collected, but in fact, she was listening to the conversation of the people next to her. So that means that the third princess won't be coming today. That's right. Now that the entire Tianling dynasty's matters have piled up on her, this is only the first round of the preliminaries. Of course, she won't come personally. However, I heard that the third princess fiancé, the eldest young master of the Jiang family, will be coming. As if struck by lightning, Chu Luiwei's blood froze. Digression. After today's event, mobile users please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 483. The eldest young master of the Jiang family? The eldest son of Grand Tutor Jiang Lizhua? Wasn't he the princess in the past? Sure. Do you want to die? How dare you say such things? What's wrong? Well, I came to West Hill 2 years ago, didn't I say? You said it was 2 years ago. Today is different from the past. Many things have changed. That person back then, something went wrong with his cultivation. This kind of thing is more or less disgraceful. Now, the entire Tianling dynasty doesn't mention it anymore. Besides, after that person passed away, the third princess was devastated. Fortunately, this eldest young master of the Jiang family accompanied and comforted her, so she finally got through it. In addition, there were many things that they needed to deal with together, so it was normal for them to be together over time. No matter what, the two of them are not suitable together. This general, where is he? Back then, she and the eldest young master of the Jiang family were about to get married. Anyway, these things are not something we can discuss in private. Don't say the wrong thing again. That person will be here later. The few of them quickly quieted down. Chu Luiyue was familiar with the appearance of one of them, but the rest were very unfamiliar. She quickly retracted her gaze and lowered her eyes to hide the emotions in her eyes. So after her death, there were such rumors after a while, the corners of her lips curled up into a cold smile. Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing were really capable. They inverted black and white and mixed up right and wrong. Back then, it was clearly the two of them who secretly had an affair and betrayed her. In the end, in the eyes of everyone, she became the person who couldn't be mentioned. Jiang Yuqing was her fiancé more than a year ago, but now he was Shang Wanwan's. However, everyone was quite supportive of this, and there was almost no criticism. It was really hard on those two people to put in so much effort. Everyone, according to your order, go to your positions. Elder Qiushi stood in the air, his qi deep in his dantian, and his voice spread far and wide. Chu Luiyue looked up. It turned out that everyone had finished their order. Elder Duanmu Chun waved his sleeves, and a huge black jade slab quickly flew to the west side of the square. It floated there quietly, emitting a faint glow. Almost everyone in the square could see the rows of names on it. Elder Duanmu Chun followed closely behind, leaping to the side of the jade slab. The huge square was suddenly split into squares. A number appeared on each square, and they were arranged in order. Everyone walked towards their own squares. Chu Luiyue walked to the number 53 foot and looked up at her surroundings. Xuanji Square was extremely spacious. Even though it was divided into 100 squares, each square didn't look small. It was even bigger than the biggest competition venue in country Yaochun. Most of the people were already in position. Chu Luiyue glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw Zhao Yunji walking over. However, there was something wrong with her complexion. Her eyebrows were drooping, and her eyes looked a little dazed, as if she had just suffered a serious injury. She was completely different from the arrogant and haughty person from before. Sensing Chu Luiyue's gaze, Zhao Yunji looked up. Chu Luiyue clearly saw the flash of panic in her eyes. Panic? Interesting. Chu Luiyue crossed his arms, tapped his chin lightly, and laughed. It seemed like Zhao Yunji finally knew something she should have known. What are you laughing at? Zhao Yunji was very sensitive at this moment. When she saw the smile on Chu Luiyue's face, she immediately exploded. Chu Luiyue's smile didn't change. I wanted to laugh, so I naturally laughed. If you want to order me around, it won't be too late to do so after you beat me. If Zhao Yunji heard this before, she would only think that Chu Luiyue was courting death. However, after hearing those rumors, she felt a little uneasy when she looked at Chu Luiyue now. This Chu Luiyue might really have some tricks up his sleeve. Of course I will beat you, Zhao Yunji said stubbornly. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered with her. He chuckled softly and looked at Elder Qiushi. Zhao Yunji walked to the same square. Her hands were clenched into fists, and her throat was dry. Elder Qiushi looked around. When the surrounding voices quietened down, he stroked his beard in satisfaction and said in a deep voice, "The purpose of this Wanzhong competition is to recruit talents. Those who can participate in this competition are all cultivators with the Daijing Yuan Meridian from all over the world. Those who can stand in this square are all geniuses who are sought after by the world. As soon as he finished speaking, many people in the square revealed proud expressions. However, even if you have top-notch talent, you still need to go through many trials and hardships to become a peerless expert. Without enough resources and a firm belief, you will achieve nothing. Everyone's expression became more serious. Some of you are from the Tianling dynasty, but most of you are from outside Heaven's canopy. Although the geniuses of the Tianling dynasty have resources, they may not have enough vigilance because they have been living in comfort for a long time. As for the geniuses outside Heaven's canopy, they may have top-notch talent, but their cultivation is often delayed because of the lack of resources. Therefore, the third princess and the prince consort decided to hold this Wanzhong competition. I believe most of you already know that today's competition is just a preliminary round. There will be 3, 8, 12 participants, and you will compete in pairs. Only the winner can enter the next round. As long as you can successfully enter the next round, everyone will receive generous rewards. And those who don't have a sect will be given special permission to enter one of the many sects in Shilling City. Everyone was in an uproar. This meant that as long as they won today's competition, they would be able to enter a Shilling sect unconditionally. This was a huge temptation. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 484. Of course, this didn't mean that as long as you enter the next round, you could casually choose a sect. After you say which sect you want to join, you still have to pass the sect's examination. If you don't pass, you have to choose again. The surrounding noise quieted down, but most people were still enthusiastic. Actually, this was very normal. After all, the sects that could establish themselves in Shilling were almost the most outstanding sects in the entire Tianling dynasty. They had always been very strict in their selection of disciples. If anyone could enter, it would be too ridiculous. However, everyone here is a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian. I believe that the various sects will also welcome you. Elder Qiushi added, I believe that everyone also understands that the better your performance in the Wanzhong competition, the more you will be favored by the powerful sects. The chances of you being selected will also be higher. Everyone had different expressions. Some were excited, some were nervous, and some seemed to be fantasizing about which sect to choose. The top 100 contestants are now in position. After the competition starts, there is no time limit. It will only end when one side admits defeat or is kicked out of the square they are in. After every competition ends, those who are ranked behind will take their place. The loser's name will automatically disappear from this black jade board. Elder Qiushi looked around. Now, do you have any other questions? Elder Qiushi, a youth raised his hand and asked loudly. In this competition, is it fine as long as you win, regardless of the methods used? Elder Qiushi stroked his beard. That's right. As long as you don't kill, there are no other restrictions. If you win, it will be your ability. Some of the foreign contestants from Heaven's Canopy had a slight change in expression. With this sentence, it was easy to imagine how cruel and intense the Wanzhong competition would be. However, most of the people in Shilling City had excited looks on their faces. There were even waves of excited cheers coming from the spectator stands. Zhao Yunji's face was a little pale as she muttered softly, This, how can this be? Isn't this too unruly? Chu Luiwei glanced at her and raised his eyebrows. Why, didn't your cousin tell you that it has always been like this in Shilling? Countless powerhouses from all over the world had gathered in Shilling City. The concept of the strong being respected was more deeply rooted in the hearts of the people here than anywhere else. This place seemed to be bustling with activity, but in fact, there were bloody and cruel battles happening every day in various parts of the city. Every day, countless people died on the streets because they were weak. It was already pretty good that the Wanzhong meet only requested that no one be killed. Zhao Yunji bit her lip and didn't say anything for a while. She had only heard her cousin talk about how noble and powerful Shilling City was, but he had never mentioned any of this. I hereby announce that the preliminaries for the Wanzhong competition begin. Elder Qiushi shouted in a deep voice. In the arena, someone reacted quickly and took the initiative to strike first. The entire square instantly fell into a chaotic battle. Fortunately, each square was spacious enough, and there was a layer of enchantment glowing with a faint silver light around it, making it easy for everyone to distinguish and not confuse each other. Many people's gazes were focused on Chu Luiyue and Zhao Yunji's competition area. That rank 3 warrior is the lowest level here, right? I think they'll be the first to finish this round. That might not be the case, right? Haven't you heard that Chu Luiyue is quite strong? You're saying that she's the girl who defeated Wu Zhao. I heard that she came with Jian Fengqi and has Jian Fengqi support. Maybe Wu Zhao went easy on her? That's true. How can it be so mysterious? I heard that many sect disciples are participating in the competition this time. It must be very exciting. The audience was almost full, and there was a hubbub of voices. Looking around, most of them were discussing the competition in full swing. However, in the direction that the black J board was facing, there was a small area that was somewhat out of place from the surroundings. Those few people looked very ordinary, but the aura on them was unapproachable. In the West Hill, there were too many people with power and influence. If one wasn't careful, they wouldn't even know how they died. Therefore, the people around them also stayed obediently and didn't take the initiative to provoke these people. One of them was a man in an aqua blue robe. Although his appearance was ordinary, his aura was noble, and he didn't seem like an ordinary person. His gaze swept across the black jade board lightly, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Interesting, there's actually a rank 3 warrior participating this time. A man beside him nodded and said, I heard that she just came yesterday and caused quite a commotion in Pingliang Square. She's much stronger than ordinary rank 3 warriors. To be able to fight above her level, she must have some special ability. Furthermore, she's 2 whole levels above her. Even if her realm is low now, her potential is not bad. The man in the aqua blue robe's gaze landed on the square. A slender and exquisite figure of a young girl came into view. From his angle, he could only see the simple hair tied up and the red skirt fluttering in the wind. The black and red complemented each other. It was clearly a simple outfit, but there was an indescribable charm to it. From afar, it looked like a vivid and flowing painting. The man beside him quietly made a hand gesture. He narrowed his eyes. That girl's Daijing Yuan Meridian is actually intermediate. She doesn't look old. She said she's only 14 years old. Where did she come from? Country Yaochun. The man in the aqua blue robe suddenly paused. Yaochun? Isn't that the place Mu Qinghe went to? Yes, and she was brought here by Jian Fengqi. The man beside him noticed that his expression was a little off and asked apprehensively, Eldest young master, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? The man pondered for a moment and shook his head. Nothing. It seemed like there was more to this matter than met the eye. In the arena, Zhao Yunji pulled out a blue rapier. An icy aura quickly spread from it. Very quickly, a thin layer of frost formed on the thin sword. Even the ground under her feet began to be covered with a thin layer of ice. Ice River Slash. Zhao Yunji poured all the force in her body into the blue rapier. A silver light quickly spread from the hilt. It was like a layer of ice breaking. A cracking sound rang out, and a piercingly cold and ferocious sword chi surged out. Zhao Yunji tiptoed and leaped up. The blue rapier pierced straight for Chu Liuyue's heart. This ice river sword was made of extremely precious ice iron and was filled with the icy aura of an extremely cold place. It was extremely powerful. It had never tasted defeat in countless battles over the years. Zhao Yunji stared at Chu Luiyue. To be able to lose to my ice river sword, you didn't come here in vain. With that, the sword approached his throat. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 485. A ball of red flame suddenly burned in Chu Liuyue's palm. The flame danced happily like a fairy, causing the surrounding temperature to rise by a lot. Celestial physician, Zhao Yunji was shocked, but then she sneered. Turning the force into fire is good for refining medicine. But if you want to use it to win this competition, you're too naive. Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. He flicked his finger, and the fist-sized ball of flame instantly flew out. In an instant, it landed on the tip of Zhao Yunji's ice river sword. You overestimate yourself, break. Zhao Yunji shouted in a low voice. A gust of cold air surged out from the tip of the sword. She wanted to completely freeze the ball of flame. However, the scene in her imagination didn't happen. The ball of flame wasn't affected at all. Instead, it turned into a stream of fire and quickly burned along the ice river sword. Crackle! Ice and fire collided. The layer of frost that covered the ice stream sword suddenly exploded. Countless pieces of ice were wrapped in sparks and scattered in all directions. However, before they landed on the ground, the ice had completely melted and evaporated. Finally, when they landed on the ground, only burning flames were left. As the flames burned, the layer of ice that had just frozen on the ground began to quickly melt. The remaining flames spread all the way to the sword hilt. A scalding heat came from the sword hilt. Ah! Zhao Yunji cried out in pain and uncontrollably threw the ice river sword. Bang! Bang! Zhao Yunji looked over in panic and anger, only to see that the ice river sword had been completely wrapped in the red flame. If she had let go a little later, her hand would definitely have been burned. You, what the hell is this? She said angrily, but there was still some lingering fear in her eyes. Although she wasn't a celestial physician, she had seen many since she was young. There had never been a celestial physician's flame that was so terrifying. There was definitely something wrong with Chu Liuyue's force flames. It's not a damn thing, but you'll soon find out if you can use it to win this competition. The origin power within Chu Liuyue's body converged, and a ball of flames quickly condensed on each of his palms. Zhao Yunji shuddered. If that flame landed on his body, even the cold energy stored in the ice stream sword was unable to resist this flame, let alone a mortal like her. Zhao Yunji took 2 steps back and crossed her fingers in front of her. Shadow lock. The void in front of her suddenly rippled. It was like a gentle breeze blowing across the surface of a lake, creating circles of ripples. A ripple slowly spread towards Chu Liuyue's calf. Wherever it passed, it actually left a clearly visible black spatial crack. The first lock, gushing spring. Chu Liuyue could clearly feel that the space where the ripples passed through had become viscous. His feet, in particular, felt as if they were bearing 1,000 pounds of weight. It was difficult to move. The scattered flames on the ground were also affected by this strong pressure and became much weaker. Zhao Yunji was overjoyed. This move was also one of her trump cards. Because it consumed a lot of origin power, she rarely used it. She didn't think that she would be forced to this step after just exchanging blows with Chu Liuyue. Zhao Yunji was very sullen, but she knew that there was no other way. Chu Liuyue's strength was clearly much stronger than she had imagined. If she didn't get rid of him quickly, it would only be more troublesome later. The second lock, Origin Gate. The second ripple appeared and spread towards Chu Liuyue's waist. Zhao Yunji's origin core continued to surge with origin power, crazily consuming it. This shadow-locking art was actually a genuine Earth rank martial technique. The first 2 locks were just a foundation. The real power was in the third lock. As long as she could successfully use the third lock, she would be able to fully display the power of an Earth rank martial skill. However, to the current her, using the third lock would exhaust all of her energy. In other words, if she couldn't win with this attack, she would have no chance at all. But how could she not win? Zhao Yunji quickly looked up at Chu Liuyue and saw that she was indeed trapped in the first 2 locks. Even the flames in her hands were almost extinguished. Zhao Yunji's heart calmed down. The first 2 locks were enough to temporarily stop the origin power in Chu Liuyue's body from circulating. She wanted to use this time to prepare the third lock. Directly defeat Chu Luwei. The third ripple finally formed. Zhao Yunji suppressed the excitement in her heart and recklessly poured out origin power. Her face was a bit pale, and her vision seemed to be a bit blurry. This was a sign of exhaustion. However, Zhao Yunji didn't stop. Once she thought about how she could directly defeat Chu Luiwei this time, she was filled with excitement. Buzz. As the ripples in front of her became complete bit by bit, a frightening aura gradually spread out. Many people in the audience noticed the commotion and couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Earth rank martial skill? The preliminaries have just begun. How could someone use such a move? That's Zhao Yunji and Chu Luwei. She's actually so afraid of Chu Luwei. Didn't you see earlier? Chu Luiwei broke Zhao Yunji's origin weapon. If Zhao Yunji doesn't counterattack, Chu Luiwei will win. TSK. With this Earth rank martial skill, Chu Luiwei is definitely going to lose. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the third ripple was finally completed. Third lock, Heaven's Spirit. Zhao Yunji pushed forward with both hands. The last ripple slowly but firmly covered Chu Luiwei's head. Chu Luiwei stared at the ripple that contained a powerful aura. Her black eyes were like black jade as they flashed with a cold light. At the same time, the origin power in her body continuously flowed into her hands. Seeing that Chu Luiwei didn't move, Zhao Yunji thought that she was afraid and couldn't help but fiercely say, "It's too late to admit defeat now. Today I will boom." Before she could finish her sentence, two balls of flames suddenly appeared in Chu Luiwei's palms. In the next moment, her hands clenched together. The two balls of flames fiercely collided. The dazzling flames rose and almost enveloped her entire body. The ripples in front of her waist disappeared in an instant. Zhao Yunji's body shook and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Her aura instantly weakened by a lot. The flames quickly transformed into a red, flaming whip. Chu Luiwei swung her wrist. Pa! The flaming whip fiercely hit the rune below. Crack! The rune broke. Zhao Yunji's face was as pale as a ghost. No. Chu Luiwei swung her whip. She whipped the last rune in front of her. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The flaming whip actually directly slashed through the middle of the rune. Zhao Yunji looked up in shock and saw the crimson flaming whip whipping towards her. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 486. Zhao Yunji tiptoed and quickly retreated. She even left behind a few afterimages. Slap! The crimson flaming whip lashed heavily on the ground, instantly leaving a charred mark. Although Zhao Yunji barely dodged it, her left arm was not spared. The flaming whip had struck her forearm, leaving a bloody wound on it. Her entire sleeve had been set ablaze. Seeing that the flames were about to spread, Zhao Yunji didn't even think about it and removed the entire sleeve. Rip! Her slender arm was exposed to everyone's eyes. Although there was a shocking wound on her forearm that was dripping with blood, the girl's fair skin still attracted a lot of attention. Her pitiful appearance caused many people to become restless. All kinds of gazes fell on her, making Zhao Yunji feel ashamed and resentful. She had a noble status and outstanding talent in Suiyang Empire. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? But before she could react, Chu Luiwei's second whip had already landed. Zhao Yunji retreated again. That Zhao Yunji's movement technique is not bad. Looking at her speed, she's almost at the middle stage of the 5th level. She should be able to wait. Chu Luiwei also moved. How is she so fast? Chu Luiwei jumped up, and her figure was like the wind as she quickly rushed forward. More importantly, her speed didn't seem to be much slower than Zhao Yunji's. The man in the blue robes' eyes suddenly focused. This movement technique looked a bit familiar, but after looking at it for a while, he felt that it wasn't. That Zhao Yunji is going to lose, he said calmly. The man next to him was startled. Eldest young master, why do you say that? Although that Zhao Yunji suffered a bit before, she's still 2 levels higher than Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei won't be able to catch up to her. No, she can catch up. The man laughed. The others looked at each other and couldn't help but look over. At this moment, Chu Luiwei suddenly threw out the fire whip in her hand. In the next moment, she tiptoed and jumped on a fire whip. With the help of the fire whip, she leaped continuously. It was actually following the path of the flame whip. The distance between the two of them was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. She was dressed in red, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. She was as light and lively as a phoenix dancing in a raging inferno, dazzling everyone. Zhao Yunji watched as Chu Luiwei sprinted towards her. Her heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out of her mouth. She tried her best to retreat, but Chu Luiwei was faster than her. She hurriedly looked back and was shocked to find that she was about to be forced out of the realm. Once she crossed the line, she would lose. Zhao Yunji clenched her teeth, turned around, and headed in another direction. A cold smile appeared on Chu Luiwei's lips. She had no interest in continuing to play with Zhao Yunji. Time to end this. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and suddenly leaped. It landed on the tail of the flame whip. A silver light flew out from her hand. Zhao Yunji suddenly felt a cold wind coming from behind her. Danger! She almost instinctively rolled on the ground. Thud! Something stabbed into the ground where she was just a moment ago. Zhao Yunji hurriedly looked over and saw that it was an extremely sharp dagger. Because a lot of power had been injected into it, the tail was still trembling slightly. Zhao Yunji heaved a sigh of relief. However, just as she was thinking of how to counterattack, she suddenly felt a chill in her chest. She slowly looked down and saw that a flying dagger as thin as a cicada's wing had pierced through her chest. If it had been just a little bit more, it would have pierced through her heart. Her footsteps suddenly stopped. Her entire body seemed to have been frozen as she stood there, frozen on the spot. Drip! A drop of blood suddenly fell. It was such a soft sound, but she heard it very clearly. That was because it was her blood. Chu Luiwei jumped down from the flame whip and landed in front of Zhao Yunji. I'll give you a chance to admit defeat, Chu Luiwei said. A pool of blood slowly appeared on Zhao Yunji's clothes and then slowly spread in all directions. She opened her mouth, and it was filled with the smell of blood. Her voice was so weak that it was almost undetectable. However, just as everyone thought that she was going to admit defeat, she suddenly flung something out from her sleeve. Chi. Countless sharp silver needles flew out together, and there was a faint blue-purple light on it. It was clearly dipped in poison. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The two of them were very close to each other, and this hidden weapon attack was too sudden. Chu Luiwei couldn't dodge it at all. Chu Luiwei suddenly sneered and waved her sleeve as well. A silver barrier suddenly appeared and enveloped her. It was the crystal barrier. That crystal barrier was slightly damaged. Before they parted, Rong Xiao gave her a new one. Thud, thud, thud. Those silver needles hit the crystal barrier and were quickly bounced back. Zhao Yunji was shocked and immediately dodged. However, a few silver needles still pierced her body. Her pale and dry lips immediately turned a bluish purple. Chu Luiwei's eyes turned cold. This poison took effect very quickly and was very harmful to the body. Based on the amount of needles used just now, it wasn't hard to kill someone. Zhao Yunji was desperate and actually tried to kill her in front of everyone. On the other side, Zhao Yunji clearly knew how terrifying this poison was and quickly took out the antidote to consume. Chu Luiwei put away the crystal barrier, raised her hand, and held the fire whip in her hand again. Then, she poured in her force again. Boom, boom. The fire whip burned even more fiercely than before. There were even sparks flying everywhere. Chu Luiwei swung the whip. Pa! The fire whip quickly lashed out and wrapped tightly around Zhao Yunji like a snake. Zhao Yunji was busy swallowing the antidote and was caught off guard by the fire whip. The scorching flames instantly left several scars on her body. The terrifying pain caused her mind to go blank, and she almost fainted. I admit defeat. Chuluwe, didn't you hear? I admit defeat. Zhao Yunji screamed hysterically. Chuluwe said coldly, I already gave you a chance just now. With that, the fire whip tightened again. Zhao Yunji was in so much pain that she couldn't even say a word. Chuluwe, she already admitted defeat. You can't continue torturing her. Elder Chioshi saw this and hurriedly shouted. Chuluwe looked at him in a seemingly surprised manner. So there's such a rule? Elder Chioshi, please forgive me. This is my first time here, so it's inevitable that I don't understand some things. Elder Chioshi's eyebrows were almost on fire. Put her down. Oh, okay. Chuluwe agreed very straightforwardly and flicked his wrist. Zhao Yunji instantly flew out. Then, she fell heavily to the ground. Out of bounds. Chuluwe turned around and looked at Elder Chioshi with a bright smile. Is this enough? The man in the blue robe happened to see this scene. The red-clothed girl's bright smile and lively eyes were so familiar. His heart felt like it had been hit by something. A name buried deep in his heart was about to be called out. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 487. Sensing his abnormality, the people around him looked over. Eldest young master, what's wrong? That man stared intently at Chuluwe, his lips tightly shut. Seeing him like this, the others didn't dare to ask anything and all quieted down. On the arena, Elder Chioshi almost fainted from anger when he saw the bright and sincere smile on Chuluwe's face. What did she mean by that's enough, right? Her last attack almost took Zhao Yunji's life. You've gone too far. Yunji already admitted defeat, but you stubbornly refused to stop. You clearly did it on purpose. Chuluwe blinked. Elder Chioshi, I respect you as a person of virtue and prestige, so I did as you said. Didn't I stop the moment you told me to? After she finished speaking, her fair fingertips lightly turned, and the flame whip quickly retracted and disappeared into her palm. She spread her hands. I believe everyone saw it clearly, right? Elder Chioshi choked. This Chuluwe was truly cunning. She did stop after he opened his mouth, but who could say that the last attack was unintentional? She had seized the perfect timing, and he couldn't really blame her for it. Then you shouldn't have been so ruthless. You're so young, but you're so vicious. Chuluwe pondered for a while and asked in return, why? But didn't you say that as long as no lives were lost, you could use any means to win? Could it be that this rule doesn't apply to me? Elder Chioshi's face turned red and white. Chuluwe had a sharp tongue, and he couldn't argue with her at all. After all, Zhao Yunji did lose. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. Then, he said to the black cavalry beside him, hurry up and take Zhao Yunji away to treat her injuries. Two black guards quickly rushed up and carried Zhao Yunji, who was on the verge of death and covered in wounds, away. Chuluwe turned around and looked at the black jade board floating in the air. Zhao Yunji's name was nowhere to be seen. Only her name remained. Chuluwe. Only the winner could stay. Chuluwe looked around and raised his eyebrows slightly. They seemed to be the first to finish the competition. Match number 53, Chuluwe wins. Elder Duanmu-chun shouted in a deep voice. Number 101, filling in for number 53. Hearing this, Chuluwe was finally satisfied and walked down the stage leisurely. Countless pairs of eyes looked over at the same time. Shock, envy, jealousy, admiration. Those gazes had different meanings, but Chuluwe did not take them to heart. After jumping off the stage, he walked to the resting area that had been prepared beforehand and sat down to watch the battle quietly. Half of these people would become her opponents in the next round. Low voices of discussion came from behind. Chuluwe actually won. Winning one round might be a coincidence, but to win against two rank 5 warriors in a row, it's enough to prove that she really has the strength. I think she's about to break through to rank 4 warrior. When that time comes, it'll be even easier to win. But she's got guts. I heard that Zhao Yunji was brought here by Chun Shiyuan from the Soaring Cloud sect. She had already agreed to enter the Soaring Cloud sect directly. No wonder Elder Qiushi was so angry. For so many years, he had helped the Soaring Cloud sect a lot. Seeing that the Soaring Cloud sect had lost such a good seedling, how could he be indifferent? But he's an elder of the royal family after all. It's not appropriate for him to always do this. I think it's unfair for him to reprimand Chu Luiyue just now. If the person who lost was Chu Luiyue, he definitely wouldn't come out to reprimand her. Chu Luiyue sat leisurely and listened to these words. Suddenly, she felt that there seemed to be a substantial gaze in the crowd that fell on her. She was almost instinctively alarmed. She looked up. A man in a blue robe came into her sight. He looked to be in his 30s and had an ordinary appearance. But when she saw his eyes, Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She would recognize those eyes even if they turned to ashes. Jiang Yuqing. It was obvious that he had changed his appearance, restrained his aura, and sat in the crowd. The people around him should be his followers, and they were also disguised as ordinary people. No matter who saw these people, they wouldn't give them a second glance. But she was different. She had seen Jiang Yuqing's face for so many years, and she couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. And his pair of eyes that seemed gentle and affectionate, but were actually sinister and ruthless, were like a brand that was deeply engraved in her mind. Seeing that Jiang Yuqing seemed to have noticed her gaze, Chu Luiyue immediately pretended to look away unintentionally. Even though her heart was in turmoil, the expression on her face was incomparably calm. Even the curvature of her lips did not change in the slightest, making it impossible for others to see through her. No one knew how much strength she had to rely on to suppress the killing intent that was surging crazily in her heart. Everything in the royal family's ancestral hall seemed to have happened yesterday. It was vivid in her mind and incomparably vivid. However, her heart no longer felt the pain of being betrayed. There was only the thought of tearing him into pieces. She closed her eyes. That's right. Someone had said that Jiang Yuqing would come. She had actually been waiting, but Jiang Yuqing didn't appear until the competition started. So she threw this matter to the back of her mind. She didn't expect him to change his identity and blend in with the crowd. Why did he do that? With his current identity, he could have come openly. Why did he have to put in so much effort? And more importantly, just now when he looked at her, what was he looking at? Was it because she was the first to win the competition? Or was it something else? Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and looked around casually. She looked exactly the same as before. She looked completely relaxed, as if she had won the competition. She could still feel Jiang Yuqing looking at her, but the emotions in her heart had gradually calmed down. Anyway, she had already changed her identity, and her appearance and age were different from before. She didn't believe that Jiang Yuqing would still be able to recognize her. Thinking of this, her mood became better. Now it seemed that she was in the dark, while he was in the clear. On the other side, Jiang Yuqing had been staring at Chu Luiyue since the first time he saw the smile on her face. At first, he really thought that it was that person, but after looking carefully for a while, he felt that he was thinking too much. Although their smiles were very similar, their facial features were still quite different. Moreover, Chu Luiyue did look like she was only 14 or 15 years old, and that person had already been buried in the sea of fire. How could he still appear? Jiang Yuqing rubbed the space between his eyebrows. It seemed that he had been too tired during this period of time, which was why he was thinking about such nonsense. Go and investigate Chu Liuyue's background. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 488. The people beside him looked at each other and found it strange. Could it be because Chu Luiyue had displayed strength that far exceeded her level? But it didn't seem that simple. When eldest young master saw Chu Luiyue for the first time, his reaction was very unusual. Although they thought so, it didn't show any abnormalities and said respectfully in a low voice, "Yes." After Jiang Yuqing denied the thought in his heart, he shifted his gaze elsewhere. There were hundreds of matches going on in the square at the same time. Among them, there were many more outstanding matches than Chu Luiwei and Zhao Yunji's. But for some reason, he couldn't focus on the other matches. Instead, he would look at Chu Luiwei from time to time. Every time he found that he couldn't help but look at Chu Luiwei, Jiang Yuqing would secretly warn himself that this was the last time. But time and time again, it seemed like he couldn't control himself. Even if he forced himself not to look at her, his mind kept recalling the smile he saw for the first time. Bright, brilliant, pure, and full of spirit and craftiness. Even if the appearance was only 30% similar, this smile had 50% of the charm of that woman from many years ago. Jiang Yuqing pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. No, this isn't right. He came today to secretly check on these Daijing Yuan Meridian cultivators. He couldn't let other things disturb his mind. After repeating this several times in his heart, he finally let out a heavy sigh. Chu Luiwei naturally didn't know Jiang Yuqing's inner turmoil. On the contrary, she had completely calmed down. Before coming to West Hill, she had already made sufficient preparations. So after a short moment of surprise, she quickly accepted this matter. The most important thing now was to find out what they were planning to do by holding this Wanzhong competition. She didn't believe a single word of what Elder Qiushi said earlier. Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing definitely didn't have such foresight and breadth of mind. They clearly had other motives. Other than that, she needed to investigate the current situation in the Imperial court as soon as possible. Who was it that had betrayed her back then, and who was still standing by her side? Chu Luiwei leaned against the chair and rested his chin on one hand, deep in thought. She was weak now, so she needed to find some reliable people to help her. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the square. Chu Luiwei looked up and saw that another match had ended. Another name disappeared from the black jade board. Not long after, two names disappeared almost at the same time. After she was the first to finish the competition, the other contestants in the square seemed to have been stimulated and sped up the competition. The competition instantly became more intense. Of course, this also led to more and more matches being decided. Time passed bit by bit. More and more names disappeared from the jade board. The cultivators who were carried off almost continuously. Because it was a rare opportunity, everyone wanted to win desperately. Therefore, they all used their special skills, and their injuries were particularly tragic. Some who didn't want to admit defeat were beaten until they were covered in blood and passed out. There were messy bloodstains everywhere in the square. The people in the audience seats became more and more excited, and even began to shout and cheer with red faces. Many people had already taken their seats beside Chu Luiwei. Seeing this, those from the Tianling dynasty were still okay, but those from outside Heaven's Canopy were more or less shocked. Chu Luiwei was used to it. Gradually, the people next to her seemed to have started chatting with each other. Whether they wanted to be friends or to test each other, everyone had their own thoughts, and for a moment they were a bit friendly. However, no one took the initiative to talk to Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei didn't mind. She leisurely watched the competition on the field, glancing at the names on the jade board from time to time. Are you crazy? A hysterical scream suddenly came from the square. Chu Luiwei looked over and found that the person who was screaming was a young man. And this person wasn't unfamiliar to her. It was one of the disciples from the Lingyun sect who was with Zhao Yunji. At this moment, he was holding his bleeding arm and looking at the young man in front of him in panic and anger. Are you a beast? You actually eat human flesh. Once this was said, everyone was shocked. The young man looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. He was wearing a grayish-white linen shirt that didn't fit him. Probably because it was too shabby, the clothes didn't look like it originally did. Although he wasn't short, he looked very skinny. His bones swayed in his clothes, as if he was wearing a sack. He had short, golden hair that was soft and shiny, reflecting a faint light under the sun. His hair covered most of his face, but one could still see his youthful face and sharp chin. At this moment, he was biting a piece of bloody flesh in his mouth. It was the flesh that he had bitten off the arm of the young man in front of him. He spat out the piece of flesh expressionlessly and coldly spat out a word. Stinky. His expression and tone were so calm and indifferent, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. But it was this appearance that made one's heart turn cold. The young man, standing in front of him, choked. He didn't dare to ask where the word stinky came from. He instinctively felt that he didn't want to know the answer. The onlookers also unconsciously quieted down for a moment. Everyone could see that this young man wasn't simple. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and frowned slightly, as if he was disgusted. The young man's heart couldn't help but beat violently. A sense of uneasiness quickly spread from the bottom of his heart. "You, what do you want to do?" he asked fiercely, his voice trembling slightly. However, the golden-haired young man didn't say anything. He only tilted his head and looked at him. Immediately, his figure suddenly took half a step back and arched his waist. His whole body was filled with amazing tension. The next moment, his figure rushed out quickly like a lone wolf in the wilderness. This time, he raised his hand. His calloused hand turned into a claw and grabbed the young man's neck tightly. His speed was so fast that the young man was pushed to the ground before he could react. Cough, cough. I admit defeat. Cough, cough. The young man raised his head and met the cold brown eyes under the blonde hair. He shuddered and admitted defeat without hesitation. The golden-haired young man's eyes flashed with a touch of regret, as if it was a pity that he couldn't continue fighting. But in the end, he still let go of his hand. Even if he won the match, his expression didn't change. After looking around, he walked down the stage. Then, he walked straight to Chu Luwei. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 489. The young man had an unruly wildness about him, and he looked like a young beast. Chu Yue's gaze swept past the jade slab and landed on him. The two of them looked at each other. Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luiwei was the first to speak with a smile. The young man nodded. Chu Luiwei was a little surprised. This young man seemed to have come from the border or a desolate swamp. She didn't expect him to have such an elegant name. This name and his temperament were really worlds apart. "My name is Chu Luiwei." The young man glanced at her. "I know. So many people called her just now." And he heard it clearly. Chu Luiwei was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but laugh. This young man didn't seem to be as unreasonable as he seemed on the surface. On the contrary, he seemed to be a little naive. "I need your help," Chang Wanzhou said straightforwardly. Chu Luiwei leaned back in her chair with interest. "Oh, what kind of help?" Most people wouldn't ask strangers for help easily, but it was rare for him to say it so confidently. "I want one of your kindling." Chu Yue's smile froze. "What did you say?" Chang Wanzhou looked at her expression and frowned slightly. "I want to ask for your help for free. In return, I can be your follower for 10 days. Chu Luiwei opened her mouth. "Do you know what you're saying? 20 days. It's not a matter of time, but 30 days. That's the most." Chu Luiwei rubbed between her eyebrows, feeling a headache. This child seemed to be quite good at fighting, but why did it seem like there was something wrong with his brain? "Chang Wanzhou, right? Come here and sit down first." Chang Wanzhou was about to shake his head, but Chu Luiwei beat him to it. "If you don't sit down, I won't agree." Chang Wanzhou glanced at her, then walked to the seat next to her and sat down. Chu Luiwei inadvertently glanced at him and found that his sitting posture was very standard. His shoulders and back were straight, and his aura was awe-inspiring, as if he had specially learned it. If one did not look at his shabby clothes, his actions and actions would make him look like a noble young master that could only be nurtured by an aristocratic family. After sitting down, he looked straight at Chu Luiwei, obviously waiting for her answer. Chu Luiwei sighed softly in his heart and raised a finger. "First of all, this is not how you ask for help. Secondly, even if you agree to be my follower for a year, I'm not interested. Thirdly, do you know what a fire seed is?" Chang Wanzhou's cold and unruly gaze swept across her fingers. "Firstly, I'm the one who's asking for your help. Naturally, I'll do it my way. Secondly, I've said it before, 1 month at most. 1 year is absolutely impossible. Third, I know what kindling is. Aren't you a celestial physician? Naturally, you have a fire seed. Chu Liyue's eyes widened slightly. Who told you that as long as you're a celestial physician, you have a fire seed? Chang Wanzhou's face was full of vigilance. Of course, someone told me. Chu Liyue facepalmed. That's a liar who lied to you. Only a top celestial physician can condense a fire seed. With my current level, I can't do it no matter what. I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. Chang Wanzhou suddenly stood up, his face full of anger. Who are you calling a liar? Chu Liyue was taken aback. She did not expect Chang Wanzhou to have such a big reaction to this sentence. It seemed that the person who told him this was very important to him. Ahem, that's not what I meant. I mean, you don't seem to know much about celestial physician. I really can't help you with this matter. However, there are many outstanding celestial physician in West Hill. You can look for them. Seeing that Chu Liyue's expression was sincere and did not seem to be lying, Chang Wanzhou did not continue to be angry. I don't need any other celestial physician. Only you can help me, he said stubbornly. Chu Liyue did not immediately respond. The flames that she created were indeed different from others. Could it be Chang Wanzhou came for this? The so-called fire seed was condensed by a celestial physician's force into flames. A celestial physician would place a fire seed in another cultivator's body. The latter would be able to use their force to continuously grow the fire seed, allowing them to use flames in battle. As the cultivator's realm increased, the fire seed in their body would also grow. In the end, some could even completely integrate the power of the fire seed and become a celestial physician. This was also the method that some people who wanted to become a celestial physician would use. However, how could it be so easy to condense a fire seed? It would consume a lot of the celestial physician's force and energy, but the success rate was extremely low. For a celestial physician, refining a fire seed was a thankless task. No one would be willing to help others refine a fire seed for free. However, in Chang Wanzhou's eyes, it seemed to be an easy task. Chu Liyue looked at his stubbornness and felt a headache coming on. It seemed to be difficult to persuade him. You don't want to help me? Chang Wanzhou asked belatedly. Chu Liyue shrugged helplessly. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't want to help, but I really can't. Chang Wanzhou said firmly. You don't want to help me. This time, it was a statement. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed slightly. However, Chang Wanzhou didn't say anything else. He turned his head and looked at the arena. His expression was as indifferent and calm as ever, as if he didn't care too much about this matter. However, Chu Liyue was suddenly curious as she leaned closer and asked softly, Why? Why do you want a fire seed? You're so talented as a martial artist. There's no need for you to be a celestial physician. Chang Wanzhou glanced at her. I don't want to be a celestial physician. Then what do you want a fire seed for? Chu Liyue was even more confused. Chang Wanzhou paused. I want a fire seed to prolong my life. As he spoke, a trace of loneliness flashed across the young man's young and arrogant face. I'm looking for someone, but I haven't found her yet. I'm afraid that I'll die before I find her. His tone was indifferent. However, Chu Liyue realized that when he said that he was about to die, he didn't have any emotional fluctuations. However, when he mentioned that he couldn't find that person, he revealed a trace of unconcealable sadness. It was as if that person was more important than his life. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Is that person very important to you? The expression on Chang Wanzhou's face had returned to normal. Hearing this, his lips pursed slightly, his chin tensed up, and he said firmly, She's the most important person to me. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to be touched by something soft. She didn't say anything else. She just leaned back in her chair and looked at the arena. The two of them were silent, as if they had already let this matter go. Time passed by bit. There were fewer and fewer names on the black jade board. More and more people were being carried off the arena. When half of the competition was over, Chu Liyue finally spoke softly. I can help you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 490. Chu Liyue was a little surprised when she said that. She wasn't the kind of person who was overflowing with sympathy. Most of the time, it was more appropriate to say that she was ruthless and decisive. But for some reason, when she looked at Chang Wanzhou's lonely expression and said those words, she actually felt sad for a moment. This feeling was rare. She had never been willing to take the initiative to provoke people who had nothing to do with her, so as to avoid trouble. But Chang Wanzhou seemed to be different. Really, Chang Wanzhou heard her words and looked back. His brown eyes, covered by soft golden hair, were so bright that they seemed to be blooming for a moment. Chu Luiyue suddenly stopped hesitating. The corners of her lips curled up, and she smiled. I've always been a man of my word, but according to the agreement, you have to be my follower for a month. Chang Wanzhou immediately nodded. Okay. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and bent his pinky. The agreement is the proof. Chu Yueyue's eyes twitched. What are you doing? Chang Wanzhou said matter-of-factly. This is the highest level of agreement between people. Since you and I have an agreement, you can't go back on your word. Chu Luiyue. Looking at Chang Wanzhou's convinced expression, Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something. Did that person teach you this too? As expected, the young man nodded. Before this, she was the only one I've made an agreement with. You're the second. Why did it sound like he was holding a pinky promise with her? Because he thought highly of her. Chu Yueyue's eyes turned, but she calmly stretched out her pinky and made a pinky promise with him. The young man's hand was as cold as ice. Chu Luiyue glanced at him without batting an eyelid. No wonder he said that he needed a fire seed to prolong his life. This kid looked no different from an ordinary person, but his internal organs had already been invaded by the cold, evil qi. Most of the force in his body should have been frozen. Even in this state, he still had such strong combat strength. She really didn't know how amazing his true strength was. Come here. After making a pinky promise, Chu Luiyue hooked his finger at him. Chang Wanzhou leaned towards her in confusion. When he got closer, Chu Luiyue finally saw his face clearly. Then he was slightly stunned. This was actually an excessively beautiful young man. His skin was very white, almost translucent. Under his short blonde hair was a pair of brown eyes that were cold and proud, but pure and clean, like the snow on a mountain. Her nose bridge was high, and her lips were shaped like rose petals. The corners of her mouth were naturally upturned. His smooth jawline and sharp chin made him look clean and youthful. If it weren't for the fact that his facial features and demeanor were indeed that of a young man, Chu Luiyue would almost have suspected that this was a beautiful and moving girl. Chu Luiyue raised his hand and ruffled his golden hair. Chang Wanzhou was stunned at first, then frowned. What are you doing? Looking at his messy appearance, Chu Luiyue smiled and shook his little finger. Since the alliance has been established, it's effective, right? Today is your first day as my attendant. In other words, as an attendant, one should have the self-awareness of an attendant. What's the big deal about ruffling his hair? Chang Wanzhou stared at her for a while. A hint of anger seemed to flash in his beautiful eyes, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just turned his head and sat upright. After a while, he said coldly, "Got it." Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. This Chang Wanzhou looks cold and unapproachable, but in fact, he seems to be very easy to coax. She now understood why the person he was looking for deliberately deceived him with a small lie. With this thought, the last bit of conflict in Chu Luiyue's heart completely dissipated. It just so happened that she was alone and helpless in West Hill. It would be good to have one more helper. Not to mention other things, Chang Wanzhou's talent and strength were very strong. His level should be at the peak of the 5th level now. According to his age, he could definitely be considered a top genius. Where are you from? Chu Luiyue asked. Nanjiang. Nanjiang. The Nanjiang of the Tianling dynasty. Chu Yueyue's eyes widened slightly. Seeing Chang Wanzhou nod, Chu Luiyue was even more shocked. The Tianling dynasty had a total of 4 major territories, and they were all barren lands. Among them, the southern border was even more deserted. There were swamps everywhere, and poisonous creatures were everywhere. Ordinary cultivators would die if they went there. He actually came from there. You. Who brought you here? For a cultivator with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he went all the way to Nanjiang to bring her back. This was too. No one brought me here. Chang Wanzhou said, I grew up in Nanjiang. I came when Thousand Reed Lake started to dry up. Chu Luiwei was dumbfounded. Seeing that she didn't speak, Chang Wanzhou added, It's been exactly 5 months. Chu Luiwei took a while to recover. So you're saying that you came to the West Hill from the Thousand Reed Lake of the southern border alone? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Chu Luiwei was shocked. What kind of person was he? He was only in his teens, but he could actually walk out of Nanjiang alone and cross thousands of miles to West Hill. A thought suddenly flashed through her mind. You came to West Hill to find that person? As expected, Chang Wanzhou said with certainty, yes. This answer was more determined and serious than before. Chu Luiwei asked hesitantly, but every participant is brought by someone. Who did you go to Xianli Garden with? Looking at Chang Wanzhou, how could he have gone alone? Chang Wanzhou frowned. That person seems to be called Yuminhan. I don't know him, but he told me that as long as I win first place in the Wanzhong competition and become famous, I'll be able to find the person I'm looking for. Chu Luiwei immediately understood. That person called Yuminhan must have discovered Chang Wanzhou's talent and deliberately tried to rope him in and trick him into participating in the Wanzhong competition. Chang Wanzhou came from Nanjiang and was inexperienced. When he heard that he could find the person he was looking for, he naturally agreed. That Yuminhan, do you know which sect he is from? Chang Wanzhou's expression froze, and he shook his head. I didn't ask. Chu Luiwei was speechless. This child was really honest. He didn't even know who the other party was before he boarded the other party's pirate ship. When you signed up, you should have written his name and sect. Didn't you notice? Chang Wanzhou suddenly fell silent. His golden hair fell down and covered his eyes. However, Chu Luiwei inexplicably saw a trace of embarrassment. His fingers curled slightly. After a while, he said, I can't read. Chu Luiwei reacted and thought to herself that she was really stupid. Chang Wanzhou grew up in Nanjiang. It was not easy for him to survive until now. Naturally, he did not have the opportunity to read and write. However, just as she was thinking of how to comfort him, Chang Wanzhou suddenly looked up and pointed at the black jade board. But I recognize your name, you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 491. Chu Luiwei's lips curved slightly. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. It seems that we're quite fated. Is the person you're looking for also called by this name? Chang Wanzhou shook his head. I don't know her name. She asked me to call her you, so I recognize this word. Chu Luiwei rested her chin on one hand, feeling a little strange. It just so happened to be the same as her name. She asked tentatively, She's from West Hill? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Chu Luiwei's brows twitched slightly. This person can't really be a liar, right? In her previous life, after she was born, her father personally gave her the name Yu. After she was conferred the title of princess, no one in West Hill used this word to avoid taboo. Those who were born later were better off and avoided, but those who used this word before changed it to something else. That person said that she was from West Hill, but she said that her name was Yu. Either that was her original name, or she made it up. If it was the former, it would be fine. Chang Wanzhou would recognize that person's face when he saw her. But if it was the latter, Chang Wanzhou's efforts would be in vain. He might not be able to find her in this lifetime. Is she very good to you? Chu Luiwei asked. Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely. Of course. She was the one who gave me my name. Looking at his resolute expression, Chu Luiwei swallowed the words that were in her throat. If she told him this now, he would definitely not believe her. He might even be angry with her. It was better to wait for a while and understand more before telling him slowly. Thinking of this, Chu Luiwei put away her thoughts and smiled. Your name is indeed very good. Chang Wanzhou turned his head expressionlessly. After a moment, he said, Of course. Chu Luiwei glanced at him and saw that his earlobes were slightly red. She held back her laughter and looked back at the arena. Most of the matches had already ended, and only a small number of people had yet to decide the winner. However, the atmosphere in the square was still very lively. After watching for a while, Chu Liwei suddenly thought of something and looked at Chang Wanzhou. All right, don't bite people in the future. Chang Wanzhou's aura suddenly turned cold. Are you calling me a vicious barbarian? He had heard such words too many times recently. Chu Liwei flicked him on the forehead. What are you thinking? I was afraid that the blood of those people would stain you. Your current situation isn't something that can be solved with a single fire seed. If you want to live longer, you have to be obedient. Chang Wanzhou didn't expect or mean this. The fierce expression that he had prepared immediately disappeared, and he looked a little embarrassed. According to your strength, you can easily win against most of them. Why do you have to do this? Chu Liwei showed a trace of disdain on his face. The person who fought with you just now had a low aptitude. Don't you hate him too? Chang Wanzhou opened his mouth and lowered his head dejectedly. But I need their blood, Chu Liwei sighed. This child really doesn't know anything about my situation, she said in a low voice. Although the cold and evil aura in your body can be suppressed temporarily with the blood of these cultivators, it will do more harm than good in the long run. Don't do this again in the future, understand? Chang Wanzhou looked at her serious expression and nodded subconsciously. Chu Liwei heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason, she felt like she was taking care of Child Dong. The sound of a distant bell suddenly rang out, reverberating throughout the entire square. Chu Liwei looked up and saw that the black cavalry in the distance had knocked on the bronze bell placed in the square. She looked at the black jade board as if she had sensed something. Indeed, she saw that only half of the name was left on it. Elder Qiushi rose into the air. The Wanzhou competition qualifiers are now over. Congratulations to the 196 winners. Enthusiastic cheers came from the crowd. There were also some people who were dejected, but almost no one cared. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. This was the eternal law of Xiling City. Elder Qiushi looked at Chu Liwei and the rest. Tomorrow morning, the same envoys you will meet here. The Wanzhou competition will officially begin. His voice, which was full of energy, clearly fell into everyone's ears. Most of the contestants who had already won couldn't hide their excitement. After you go back today, I hope that you can all have a good rest and prepare for tomorrow's competition. The generous rewards are right in front of you. The doors of the top sects in Xiling will also be open to you. Elder Qiushi's words were undoubtedly a shot of adrenaline to these people. Everyone became more and more excited. Yes, Chu Liwei smiled, stood up, and said to Chang Wanzhou, "Follow me." Chang Wanzhou nodded and followed him. Many people had already jumped down from the spectator seats to celebrate with the victorious contestants. The entire square was crowded. Chu Liwei and Chang Wanzhou passed through the noisy crowd, intending to leave quietly. Jiang Yuqing stood up and looked at Chu Liwei again. When he saw the golden-haired youth behind Chu Liwei, he couldn't help but frown. He had noticed that the two of them had been talking for a long time, and now they were leaving together. Do those two know each other? He asked calmly. The man beside him followed his gaze and immediately said, that youth came from Nanjiang and seemed to have been unintentionally dragged to participate in the Wanzhou competition. The two of them probably didn't know each other previously. Jiang Yuqing looked at the golden-haired youth carefully. His Yuan Meridian. Also check on him. Yes. Jiang Yuqing turned to leave, but he suddenly saw Chu Liwei turn around and smile, ruffling the youth's hair. The youth seemed a little angry, but he only glared at her and didn't say anything. Chu Liwei pulled him again and left through the crowd. Jiang Yuqing suddenly felt a tinge of displeasure. He didn't know where this feeling came from, but he was indeed angry. That smile shouldn't have appeared again, even if it was just a little similar. Eldest young master, do you need me to do something? The man beside him asked softly. Jiang Yuqing said coldly, no need. With that, he turned and left. Chu Liwei teased Chang Wanzhou for a while and finally stopped when she saw the pale, almost transparent face turn red. It was fine to tease the child, but it wouldn't be good to make him angry. The place I live in is a little special. You'll know when you follow me. Let's go buy some herbs later and recuperate your body. As Chu Liwei spoke, she had already made a list in her heart. TSK. This follower isn't cheap. Chang Wanzhou didn't talk much. Hearing her ramble, he mostly nodded. Stop. A man suddenly blocked in front of Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei looked up and saw an unfamiliar face. You are. The man didn't look at her. Instead, he looked at Chang Wanzhou and reprimanded him with a frown. Who allowed you to run around? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 492. With such a rude reprimand, those who didn't know better would think that he was someone from Chang Wanzhou. Chu Liwei had already guessed this person's identity. Yu Minhan? The man glanced at her impatiently. That's right. As he spoke, he sneered at Chang Wanzhou. Did you tell him my identity? What else did you say? As he spoke, he was about to pull Chang Wanzhou away. Chu Yueyue's eyes were cold. She stepped forward and blocked Chang Wanzhou, smiling politely. I'm sorry. Chang Wanzhou won't go back with you. Yu Minhan sized up Chu Liwei with an ugly expression. What do you mean by this? He's a member of my Azure Dragon gang. When it came to levels, it was very clear. Chu Liwei understood. Oh, so it's another third-rate gang. She had heard of this Azure Dragon gang before. Its status was similar to Eight Paths sect. Among the many sects in Shilling City, it had always been at the bottom. Most of them usually behaved with their tails between their legs. Today, they were so arrogant to her, probably because she was an outsider from Heaven's Canopy. Chang Wanzhou has already told me what happened before. He just came to Shilling to look for someone. And you took this opportunity to coax him into participating in the Wanzhou competition. If I'm not wrong, as his leader, the better his results, the higher the reward you will receive, right? Chu Liwei hadn't figured out the situation of the Wanzhou competition before, but in these 2 days, she had roughly grasped it. Sure enough, Yu Minhan's expression changed slightly. Don't talk nonsense. Chu Liwei smiled, confirming her guess. It seemed that the reward was good, but it seemed that everyone was avoiding it, whether I'm talking nonsense or not. You and I both know in our hearts. There's no need to be too ostentatious about this. In short, I must take Chang Wanzhou away today. And from today onwards, he has nothing to do with you and the entire Azure Dragon gang. How dare you? Yu Minhan suddenly became anxious. How dare you snatch people from my Azure Dragon gang? As he spoke, he harshly slapped Chu Liwei. Before Chu Liwei could move, a cool breeze blew past her ear. Bang! Chang Wanzhou punched Yu Minhan's heart. Yu Minhan was caught off guard. She was and fell heavily to the ground. Chang Wanzhou's aura was awe-inspiring, and he wanted to go forward again. Chu Liwei hurriedly pulled him back. All right. It's better to avoid trouble. Besides, she didn't want to waste time and energy on this kind of thing now. She just needed to teach him a lesson and give him a warning. Chang Wanzhou stood still and looked down at Chu Yueyue's hand that was holding his wrist. He seemed to want to break free, but in the end, he obediently stayed aside. Chu Yueyue's heart softened, and the corners of her lips curled up. In Chang Wanzhou's mind, as a follower, it seemed that he should be obedient. Even if he didn't like it in his heart, he silently accepted it. Chu Liwei let go of his hand and chuckled softly. Thank you for just now. Chang Wanzhou was stunned. He looked up at her and saw her sincere expression. There seemed to be stars blooming in her eyes. He turned his head away awkwardly. It's my duty. Chu Liwei didn't say anything else. It seemed that there was still a lot to teach him in the future. You, what are you doing? This is wiling. Do you dare to kill me? Yu Minhan struggled to get up from the ground, only to find that Chang Wanzhou's punch had caused him serious internal injuries. He immediately covered his chest and cursed angrily. It's not difficult to kill you, but now that he's my man, I don't want you to dirty his hands. As Chu Liwei spoke, she took a step forward. She was clearly smiling, but the corners of her eyes and eyebrows carried a frightening cold pressure. Yu Minhan unconsciously took a step back. Chu Liwei said softly, if you cooperate well, this matter will be over. Otherwise, I'd like to see how they'll react if they know that you randomly found someone to participate in the Wanzhou competition. Yu Minhan's face turned pale. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he said sternly, I don't care what you say. You want to sue my Azure Dragon gang? You're thinking too highly of yourself. Today, Chang Wanzhou must stay. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a whistle from somewhere and blew it fiercely. A moment later, several figures suddenly rushed over from behind him. They surrounded Chu Luiwei and Yu Minhan. There was no need to ask to know that these were all people from the Azure Dragon gang. Chu Luiwei swept her gaze over the crowd with a faint smile and teased Chang Wanzhou. I couldn't tell that they've really put in a lot of effort for you. Chang Wanzhou frowned. I'll take care of it. Chu Luiwei face-palmed. Children shouldn't always fight and kill all day. Chang Wanzhou's frown deepened. I'm not a child. Chu Luiwei gave him a comforting look. Seeing the two of them talking as if there was no one else around, Yu Minhan was furious. They didn't put them in their eyes at all. The Azure Dragon gang didn't have a high status in West Hill, but Chang Wanzhou's appearance was an opportunity for them to make a meteoric rise. Previously, the higher-ups had asked him to find a cultivator with a Daijing Yuan meridian, but he was delayed by some matters. He planned to be punished when he returned, but he didn't expect to meet Chang Wanzhou. At that time, he had no choice but to persuade Chang Wanzhou to go there. He planned to make up the numbers and avoid punishment. Who knew that Chang Wanzhou's strength would far exceed their expectations? Judging from the situation in today's qualifiers, he really had a chance to get into the top few. Only then did he realize that he had found a treasure. Under such circumstances, how could he let Chang Wanzhou go? Go! He waved his hand suddenly. The people next to him immediately rushed up. However, at that moment, someone suddenly shouted from the side, What kind of place is Xuanji Square? How dare you act so presumptuously? Yu Minhan and the others glanced at them and immediately broke out in cold sweat. The people who came were the Black Cavalry, and from the looks of it, they seemed to be captains in the army. Officer, please don't misunderstand. We're not here to cause trouble. It's just a misunderstanding. This Chu Luiwei wants to steal our Azure Dragon Gang's people. You must not let her go. That person walked toward Chu Luiwei. Yu Minhan and the others were secretly happy. Chu Luiwei would not have a good ending after provoking the Black Cavalry. However, in the next moment, they saw that the person actually cupped his fists and bowed respectfully to Chu Luiwei. Miss Chu, I'm late and have startled you. The expressions on Yu Minhan and the others' faces froze. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 493. Why was this Black Cavalry soldier so respectful to Chu Luiwei? Sir, Yu Minhan said uneasily. Did you make a mistake? Didn't this Chu Luiwei come from outside Heaven's canopy? Could it be that she had some powerful backing? Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. Colonel Duan, you don't have to blame yourself. After all, I caused this matter. Duan Ziyu shook his head. I'm responsible for your safety, so I naturally have to do everything well. He had been waiting in the audience, but he didn't expect Yu Minhan and the others to cause trouble for her. They were really tired of living. Chu Luiwei's gaze swept across the pale faces of Yu Minhan and the others. Actually, it's not a big deal. Fortunately, Colonel Duan came in time. I still have some things to do later, so let's go first. Duan Ziyu stepped aside. Yes, please. Yu Minhan and the others suddenly sighed. To be able to get the Black Cavalry's colonel to protect her so closely, it was enough to prove that Chu Luiwei's background was extraordinary. Yu Minhan couldn't help but secretly regret. He should have checked before. Chu Luiwei stepped forward. Chang Wanzhou also followed. When Chu Luiwei walked past Yu Minhan, she stopped in her tracks. If you still want to take Chang Wanzhou back, I'll be waiting for you. Yu Minhan shuddered. I wouldn't dare. Miss Chu, please. Chu Luiwei was used to this kind of face and left indifferently. It wasn't until the two of them walked past that Yu Minhan glanced at Chang Wanzhou unwillingly. That was a good seedling, but he was snatched by Chu Luiwei just like that. Azure Dragon Gang? Duan Ziyu walked over and said coldly. Only then did Yu Minhan remember that there was a great god standing next to her that she couldn't afford to offend. I know my mistake. I know my mistake. Perhaps the top sex could barely stand on equal footing with the black cavalry, but they did not dare to offend them in the slightest. He didn't want to implicate the entire Azure Dragon gang because of his own affairs. Sir, this lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I didn't know that Miss Chu's backer was actually you. I have offended you for a moment. Please don't take it to heart. Yu Minhan nodded and bowed to apologize, almost kneeling down. The corners of Duan Ziyu's mouth suddenly twitched. You're wrong. I'm not qualified to be your backer. What? Yu Minhan was stunned for a while. Seeing the smile on Duan Ziyu's face, her heart gradually sank. Duan Ziyu knocked his shoulder with the hilt of his sword. Next time, before you do something, find out if the person is someone you can afford to offend. After saying that, Duan Ziyu lifted his foot and left, quickly chasing after Chu Luiwei. Yu Minhan and the others looked at each other in dismay. A few people came forward and asked anxiously, Fourth brother, will we be all right? Yu Minhan's face was gloomy, and she slapped that person hard. Can't you tell whether we'll be all right or not? Ah, that's the captain of the Black Cavalry. It was usually difficult for them to even meet such a person, but now they had offended the person he wanted to protect. More importantly, it was obvious that someone of a higher rank than him had ordered him to do so. The person who wanted to protect Chu Luiwei had a higher status than the captain. That person was probably one of the top figures in West Hill. Then Chang Wanzhou. Are we just going to let them take him away? He has a Daijing Yuan meridian. Another person spoke insensibly, and Yu Minhan kicked him again. How could she care about that now? The entire Azure Dragon gang was probably going to be in trouble. Now, go back immediately. Find the gang leader. Chu Luiwei left Xuanji Square, with Chang Wanzhou and Duan Ziyu quickly followed. After walking for a while, there were fewer people around. Duan Ziyu finally asked, Miss Chu, are you going to take young Master Chang back? Chu Luiwei looked at him thoughtfully. I do have this plan, but I don't know if the Deputy General will agree. Duan Ziyu was really curious about why Chu Luiwei did this, but he knew his identity and would never ask anything he shouldn't ask. Therefore, he only said, the inspection to mansion has always been strict, and outsiders are not allowed to get close easily. But if Miss Chu says it herself, it will naturally be different. Chu Luiwei laughed. It didn't matter whether Mu Qinghe agreed or not. At most, she could help Chang Wanzhou find an inn. By the way, Captain Duan, I want to buy some medicinal herbs. I wonder if you can take me there? Duan Ziyu was a little surprised, but when he thought of how Chu Luiwei's force fire was clearly a talented celestial physician, it was normal for her to want to buy medicinal herbs. Come with me. After walking a few streets, Duan Ziyu brought Chu Luiwei and Chang Wanzhou to an enormous medicinal herb shop. Chu Luiwei looked up and saw 3 shining golden words on a magnificent signboard. 100 Herbs Building. Miss Chu, this is the largest medicinal herb shop in Shilling City. You can buy whatever you want here, Duan Ziyu said. Duan Ziyu said. Chu Luiwei rubbed her nose. She wasn't worried about whether there was anything she wanted here, but she might not be able to afford it at all. 100 Herbs Building was the largest medicinal herb shop in Shilling. It had a complete range of high-quality goods and expensive prices. Her 10 white crystal coins might seem like a lot to ordinary people, but here, it was barely enough. Moreover, although she had heard a lot about 100 Herbs Building, she had never been here before. The Tianling dynasty's royal family stored a large number of precious medicinal herbs, and at the same time, she personally took care of Xianli Garden. There's almost no shortage of medicinal herbs, so naturally, she wouldn't come to a place like this. Chu Luiwei originally wanted Duan Ziyu to bring her to any shop, but she didn't expect him to pick the most expensive one. But since she was already here, she couldn't just turn around and leave. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and walked in first. As soon as she stepped over the threshold, a waiter greeted her warmly. Miss, what would you like to see? Chu Luiwei glanced around. It was a special, wide, rectangular hall. Rows of transparent crystal cabinets were neatly arranged, and all kinds of medicinal herbs were placed inside. In the corresponding places, there were names and introductions, as well as prices. Chu Liwei took a cursory glance, and her eyelids twitched. 100-year-old blood Lingji costs 3 white crystal coins? What's the difference between this and robbery? I'll look around first. Chu Yue's expression didn't change, and she still looked calm and noble. The waiter responded respectfully. I'll come again after you've taken a look. After saying that, he tactfully retreated to the side. In the entire hall, there were about 100 people choosing medicinal herbs. There were also many waiters like this, and they were scattered everywhere, and their attitudes were extremely good. Chu Liwei walked along a row of crystal cabinets, and after a few steps, she stopped. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.